Imagine being born with a divine destiny that entire kingdoms would go to war for, only to end up treated worse than dirt by the very people supposed to protect you. 18 years ago, a heavenly beam crashed down on the kingdom of Fen when god Dia dropped an epic oracle prophecy that threw the whole continent into chaos. The divine decree was clear. The Almighty's chosen child was heading to Earth, and whichever lucky guy among the 5 flowers of destiny managed to win her heart would secure endless prosperity for his entire realm. Talk about the ultimate reverse harem battle royale set up by God himself. Fast forward to the big reveal, where our main girl Melissa is practically wrapped in celestial light while being told to pick her favorite soulmate. But hold up, is this divine selection process actually as sweet as it sounds, or is there a massive twist hiding behind all those pretty lily flowers? First up on the Bachelor menu, we've got the classic cheerful redhead, the suave green-haired gentleman, and the brooding blonde prince who looks like he takes himself way too seriously. Seriously, though, the artist didn't have to go this hard on the character designs, but hey, I'm definitely not complaining. Rounding out the 5 legendary suitors are a dashing desert prince type and a cool white-haired mage. But just as everyone's getting hyped for this magical romance, the story jumps 10 years into the past to show us how things really started. Because somewhere among these 5 powerful candidates lies the boy destined to change everything. But finding him isn't going to be a walk in the park. Dun dun dun. Cue the dramatic, ominous void. Rewind 10 years back to the Count Gross estate, where life looks pretty peaceful until splash! Water goes flying everywhere as a terrified gasp echoes through the stone courtyard. Furious maid is berating a tiny bruised green-haired girl on her knees for splashing a little water on her dress. Like, bro, you're screaming at an abused child over a wet apron? Talk about major villain energy from a total nobody side character. This terrified little girl shivering in dirty rags is actually our protagonist, Melissa, at just 7 years old. Look at her trembling like a leaf. It's absolutely heartbreaking to see how horribly she's being treated. Meanwhile, the other servants are gossiping in the shadows, complaining about why the Count hasn't kicked her out yet. Turns out, because she's registered as noble-born at the temple, if she magically disappears, church inspectors would start snooping around. Get this, they literally used magic to dye her hair green and change her eyes so nobody recognizes her true identity. And despite doing all that, these wicked servants still call her creepy. Honestly, the sheer audacity of these people is unreal. If you thought the maids were bad, check out her abusive guardian raising a whip. Crack! The scumbag actually threatens to shatter her legs so she can never walk again if she tries to run away. Can someone please drop a meteor on this guy already? Back in the kitchen, the evil maid stands over a giant cauldron of boiling, bubbling water, wearing the most sinister smirk you've ever seen. The dark atmospheric shift in this panel gives me absolute chills. With a cruel heave-ho, the heartless maid dumps the scalding hot water straight onto the poor girl. Steam rises as blood-curdling screams ring out through the kitchen. Curled in a ball on the cold floor, little Melissa writhes in total agony, sobbing as the brutal burns sting her tiny skin. Honestly, watching a kid endure this makes you want to jump into the screen and fight these monsters yourself. And what does the maid do after torturing a 7-year-old? She just smirks, points her finger, and orders the burning child to clean up the mess before walking off. Pure evil, no cap. Night falls, and poor Melissa is banished to a freezing, pitch-black storage shed, shivering alone while clutching her throbbing, blistered leg. Whimper, every breath she takes is pure suffering. Staring into the dark, a cold realization hits her. If she stays in this hellhole, they're straight up gonna end her life. The vivid flashback of that whip-wielding freak flashes in her mind, cementing her resolve. Decision made. She grabs her dress, slips into the night, and runs for her life through the dark forest under the glowing moon. Go, Melissa, go! Cut to the next day in a vibrant, sprawling market town filled with festive banners and busy street vendors. Man, the contrast between that terrifying dark shed and this sunlit town square is like night and day. Draped in an oversized hooded cloak, Melissa stumbles down a busy street, gasping for air while completely lost and running on pure adrenaline. Her knees give out and she starts collapsing. Swoosh! But out of nowhere, a mysterious hooded figure swoops in and catches her right before she hits the hard cobblestones. Holding the unconscious, bruised girl in their arms, the savior panics, desperately checking to see if she's still breathing. Okay, switch to chibi mode. The art style suddenly turns super cute as the hooded helper awkwardly holds dizzy little Melissa like a fragile sack of potatoes. Classic webtoon comic relief. Fast forward a bit, and Melissa is sitting on a bench, scarfing down a delicious sandwich with her eyes sparkling. She tearfully confesses she hasn't eaten a single bite in 3 whole days. Look at those stuffed cheeks. Seeing this tiny cinnamon roll finally getting a decent meal after all that trauma is so wholesome, it's making my heart melt. When the stranger gently asks why a little kid is covered in nasty cuts and bruises, Melissa instantly freezes up, her heart pounding as bad memories creep back. The stranger catches sight of her severely burned legs and completely loses it, shouting out in absolute shock and concern for her. Instead of prying or judging, the stranger just sits quietly under their hood, listening to her story with pure empathy and warmth. For the first time in years, a genuine, radiant smile breaks across Melissa's face as she thanks her new friend. Glimmer! The floral background art here is top tier. But reality hits hard a second later. A single tear splashes onto the ground as the heavy question sinks in. Where is a homeless, runaway child supposed to go now? Wiping away her tears with her bruised little hand, she stares blankly ahead, feeling totally helpless in a big, scary world. Seeing her burst into tears, the hooded stranger completely freaks out in comic panic. Wow, don't cry is such a relatable reaction when you're trying your best to comfort an upset kid. Crouching down to her eye level, the stranger softly tells her to throw away those dark thoughts, promising that things are gonna get better. With utmost care, the stranger gently wraps clean bandages around her burnt legs, tenderly telling her that her smile is way too precious to be hidden behind tears. As those gentle words reach her heart, the lingering ache from her bruises seems to fade away under the stranger's touch. The horrifying shadows of her abusive past, the whip, the spiteful servants, the cold cellar, finally start dissolving into dust. Look at that smile. With flowers blooming around her, Melissa sheds tears of pure joy and offers her most sincere thank you. Protect this smile at all costs. Suddenly, a newsboy runs through the square shouting that the 4th flower of destiny has officially been discovered. The crowd erupts in whispers, wondering why priests and knights are scouring every corner of the empire. People are literally placing bets on which kingdom will grab the legendary child of the oracle first. Sitting on the bench, Melissa hears those exact words and perks up in confusion. A soft gasp escapes her lips as she senses something unusual in the air, turning her gaze back toward her hooded companion. She stammers nervously, unsure of how to react as faint cherry blossom petals flutter gently past her green hair. Staring off into the breeze, her mind races with questions about this so-called oracle child everyone is hunting for. Suddenly, sparkles of magical light erupt around her out of nowhere, catching her completely off guard. A hooded figure steps forward and extends a gentle hand toward her, offering a warm invitation. Check out this breathtaking panel layout. Glowing white flowers frame the mysterious benefactor, reaching out a hand of salvation. The artistic, dramatic flair here is 10 out of 10. With her cheeks blushing soft pink, Melissa gazes at that open palm, her heart beating wildly against her chest. The moment their fingers interlace, flash! A brilliant burst of divine light explodes around them, shaking the very air. The magic spell masking her real appearance starts dissolving. Sparkles dance across her body as her fake green hair begins shifting back to its original divine form. Boom! The veil is shattered, revealing a dazzling starlit blue eye and shimmering silver hair, confirming that our little Melissa was the legendary divine child of the oracle all along. Just as their hands touch, a sudden burst of celestial light erupts, leaving our tiny heroine gasping in total disbelief as magical sparkles swirl all around her. She looks down at her glowing hands in awe. The dark magic that forcefully dyed her hair green and altered her eye color is completely unraveling. Gasp! Look at her leg! Even those horrifying burn marks from the scalding water completely disappear without a single scar. Talk about a top-tier divine glow-up! Meanwhile, the hooded stranger clutches his chest as soft rose petals drift through the air, clearly feeling the intense resonance from her magic spell breaking. Melissa's starry blue eyes widen as she catches a glimpse of his bare hand. Could that be a secret mark hiding under his sleeve? Swoosh! Catching her gaze, the hooded boy instantly snaps his hands together, desperately trying to conceal whatever mark he's hiding. Before she can ask a single question, an attendant bursts into the alley, yelling that royal guards are closing in. But the hooded boy refuses to run alone, urging his companion to bring Melissa along. Clank! Clank! Too late! A squad of elite royal knights in full silver plate armor appears out of nowhere, pointing straight at the fleeing kids. With a sudden snatch, a massive guard swoops in and lifts Melissa off her feet. The knights instantly declare that they've captured the child of the oracle. Dangled in the air like a tiny helpless kitten, poor Melissa is completely bewildered, wondering on earth a child of the oracle even means. Honestly, these guards have zero chill treating a kid like contraband. "Let me go," she screams, kicking her tiny feet as the knight drags her away from her benefactor. The attendant tightly restrains the hooded boy, warning his young master that taking on royal knights is pure suicide right now. Clenching his fists so hard his knuckles turn white, the hooded boy screams out across the courtyard, swearing on his life that he will come back for her. Tears fill Melissa's radiant blue eyes as those words pierce right through her heart. That emotional eye contact panel is straight up art gallery material. Hearing the boy's dramatic vow, the lead knight gets suspicious, assuming he's a kidnapper trying to claim the divine child, and orders his squad to arrest him on the spot. Realizing the danger he's in, Melissa uses all her strength to shout above the commotion, begging her protector to turn around and run. As the guards carry her off into the distance, she cries out through the market square, promising that no matter what happens, she'll be waiting for him. Tap, tap. Fast forward to the majestic royal palace. Surrounded by towering marble pillars and armored guards, Melissa trembles in her tiny shoes, feeling completely overwhelmed by the scary atmosphere. The armored guards kneel down, echoing through the vast throne room as they announce to the king that the legendary child has finally been brought before him. Sitting atop the elevated dais is an elderly king draped in heavy fur cloaks, staring down at the ragged 7-year-old with an unreadable expression. The king glares down his nose with the most unimpressed side-eye in webtoon history. Man, give the poor kid a break. She literally survived torture yesterday. The king scoffingly asks if she was hiding in a bird coop before dropping a massive bombshell. She's to be housed in the detached palace, but strictly forbidden from stepping foot outside the palace grounds. "I'm locked inside?" Melissa gasps in shock. The king coldly responds that restricting her freedom is the only way to protect her. A sharp scholar in spectacles steps forward to break down the backstory. 10 years ago, God Dia issued a divine decree foretelling the arrival of the oracle's beloved child. According to the prophecy, 5 faded flowers bearing a distinct petal mark on their hands would appear across the continent, and whichever suitor captures the oracle child's heart will bring infinite glory to his kingdom. Hearing about the petal mark, a sudden jolt runs through Melissa. She instantly recalls the exact same flower mark on the back of the hooded boy's hand. The scholar adjusts his glasses, letting out a heavy sigh at how clueless this little girl is about the geopolitical target painted on her back. Sweeping his cape, the king ends the audience and orders the head maid to escort the young girl straight to her secluded quarters. Rumble. A lavish dark carriage rolls down a winding dirt path surrounded by dense forest, carrying Melissa far away from the main palace grounds. Sitting inside the plush carriage, Melissa nervously fidgets with her dress, breaking the silence to ask the stoic maid sitting across from her. She innocently asks who the king needs to protect her from. Is it her abusive former master, or perhaps the wicked servants who burned her? The maid flatly clarifies that the world is overflowing with greedy nobles and corrupt power brokers who wouldn't hesitate to kidnap and exploit the oracle child for endless riches. Hearing the harsh truth, Melissa lowers her head as a grim shadow falls over her face. Welcome to the brutal world of high society politics, kiddo. Clack! The carriage comes to a halt as the maid announces their arrival at the detached palace. Stepping inside her new room, Melissa's jaw completely drops. Sparkling chandeliers, a massive canopy bed, an elegant golden trim. It's a million times more lavish than the Count's mansion. When she asks if a runaway like her can really stay in such a place, the maid drops another shocker. She's confined to this room for the next 10 years until her official debut at age 17. Dun dun dun! Melissa's face turns entirely pale. 10 whole years of solitary confinement? That's basically a gilded prison sentence. The maid politely reassures her that His Majesty will handle all her needs, bowing out before locking the heavy ornate doors behind her. Cue the dramatic time lapse. Years pass in solitude as Melissa studies hard under strict tutors and sips tea alone by the window, watching the seasons change while waiting for a rescue that never comes. Staring into the endless starry night, her mind continuously wanders back to that fateful day in the market square, wondering whatever happened to her mystery savior. Now grown into a stunning young lady with flowing silver hair, Melissa leans against her balcony railing, gazing wistfully up at the glowing moon. She clutches her dress, filled with anxiety over whether the hooded boy managed to escape those scary nights or if something horrible happened to him. Dark, bloody imagery flashes through her mind. A blood-soaked blade dripping on red roses? The thought of him meeting a tragic end makes her pale in fear. Gasp! Shaking away the nightmare, she tightly clasps her hands over her heart, choosing to hold on to unwavering faith in his promise. Gorgeous floral artwork frames her visual memory, recalling the exact moment their hands met and the flower petal mark etched on his skin. He has to be one of her fated suitors. With tears shining in her celestial blue eyes, she vows that if destiny brought them together once, fate will surely bring him back into her life. Flash forward 10 years. The long-awaited debut day has finally arrived inside a grand cathedral decorated with glorious blue drapes and stained glass. The camera sweeps across the legendary candidates in attendance, the suave redhead, the icy blonde prince, and the cool white-haired mage, all dressed to impress. Standing near the altar alongside the green-haired gentleman and the desert prince, Melissa's heart beats wildly inside her chest as she searches their faces for the boy from her childhood memories. Dressed in a breathtaking royal blue gown with a veil cascading over her silver hair, Melissa steps into the spotlight, introducing herself to the 5 suitors as the true child of the oracle. Stepping into the grand cathedral in her stunning royal blue gown, art girl Melissa takes a deep breath, trying to look every bit the divine maiden she's supposed to be. She flashes a warm, angelic smile, hoping everyone can just get along. But before the words even leave her mouth, kaboom! A wild bolt of magical energy erupts as a loud voice screams that she's a total idiot. Talk about an absolute shock! Melissa's jaw drops as her cute smile instantly turns into a furious anime rage face with angry veins popping everywhere. The culprit behind the shockwave? A hot-headed, white-haired mage who blatantly sneers right to her face, declaring that being the child of the oracle doesn't mean she gets special treatment. Grrr! Fuming with anger, Melissa's inner thoughts run wild as angry white cats hiss in the background. He might have a pretty face, but his personality's completely rotten. Before a full-blown war breaks out, the green-haired priest smoothly steps up, raising a calm and elegant hand. Snap! With a dramatic flick of his wrist, a sparkling holy spell triggers in midair. Silence! Just like that, magical glowing notes wrap around the fiery magician's mouth, completely locking his lips shut. The arrogant kid panics, flailing his arms like a cartoon character while trying to scream through the invisible muzzle. Brushing off the chaos like a boss, the green-haired priest turns toward Melissa with pure serenity now that the room is finally quiet. Bowing gracefully, he introduces himself as Priest Jude Layden, displaying the iconic pink flower petal mark right on his hand. Melissa's eyes turn into literal hearts. She's so stunningly beautiful, he looks like a holy goddess descended from heaven. Meanwhile, Jude casually mentions he just used magic to mute the little loudmouth, while Melissa notes that even without sound, the brat is still visibly screaming bloody murder. With a gentle smile, Jude asks if he can introduce the rest of the candidates, and Melissa eagerly agrees to meet her potential suitors. First up on the list is Prince Bernard Pettis von Fidena, a stoic, reserved royal whose broody glare could freeze hot soup. Next is Adil Oxervig, a ridiculously handsome merchant from the desert lands with a mischievous glint in his eye. Then there's Knight Ryan Gregg, a bright red-haired warrior who literally never stops smiling, radiating pure golden retriever energy. Jude wraps up the list with a polite bow, claiming that's all of them, intentionally ignoring the white-haired kid entirely out of pure petty spite. Pop! Breaking through the silence spell with sheer fury, the young mage waves his wand and screams in full cap locks for being left out. Jude deadpans without batting an eye, asking why anyone should bother introducing someone who disrespects a lady the minute they meet. When the kid tries to argue that everyone is equal under God, Priest Jude hits him with a brutal counterattack, reciting Holy Scripture line by line to prove him wrong. Crush! Jude keeps lecturing on true equality until the poor magician literally crumbles onto the floor under the weight of divine theology. Covering his ears in defeat, the fiery mage yells, "Uncle!" Honestly, getting destroyed by a priest dropping Bible verses is about the funniest beatdown I've seen all week. Gathering his remaining dignity, the kid snaps right back up and points a sharp finger straight at Melissa's face. He arrogantly announces that he is the genius magician Helix, dramatically crowning her with the terrible nickname Candle Girl. Sweat drop, poor Melissa visualizes herself as a melting birthday candle. Sure, she's pale and skinny from 10 years of solitary confinement, but that insult hit way too hard. Before Helix can roast her any further, a massive golden-ringed hand reaches out from behind out of nowhere. Clutch. Merchant Prince Adil grabs Helix by the jaw, instantly shutting down the brat's disrespect. Holding the struggling magician in a casual headlock like an unruly puppy, Adil reminds them they are standing right in front of the king. Flashing a charming smile while Helix kicks and flails in his grip, Adil asks to call her Melissa, offering his formal greetings. With a literal anime sparkle in his eye, Adil promises that whatever her heart desires, he can arrange it instantly. Now that is high-tier Riz. Not to be outdone, red-haired knight Ryan jumps in with a bright grin, promising to take her riding on his horse whenever she wants to explore the outside world. Hearing the word outside, Melissa's eyes light up with pure, starry-eyed joy after spending a whole decade trapped in a bedroom. She blushes super sweet, happily greeting both Adil and Rion with an adorable bow.
Just look at this hilarious squad dynamic. A saintly priest, a merchant choking out a toddler mage, and a cheery knight all standing in one frame.
But suddenly, shiver! A dark, oppressive aura smothers the room as Prince Bernard fixes her with a bone-chilling stare. Melissa shrinks back in absolute terror, sweating bullets as she regrets ever making eye contact with the terrifying prince. The elderly royal courtier clears his throat, breaking the heavy tension to announce the start of the official banquet. Trembling like a leaf, Melissa squeaks out a nervous response, trying to regain her composure. Jude extends his hand with an aristocratic grace, inviting her to step out into the grand hall as the main event. All 5 suitors fall into line around her like elite bodyguards, creating one of the most insanely aesthetic lineup panels in the entire story. Her cheeks turning bright pink, Melissa reaches out her hand, ready to officially take her place in high society. Boom! Character card drop. Jude Layden, the sharp-tongued saint who slays enemies with holy scriptures. Next up, Adil Aksarvig, the quick-witted merchant who could probably sell sand to a desert. Then we have Rion Gregg, the whimsical knight whose radiant smile could literally cure world hunger. Bernard Petus von Faden, the ironclad prince with maximum aura and zero tolerance for nonsense. And finally, Helix Rode, labeled out of question and literally wrapped in chains. The artist really did this kid dirty. Backstage, Melissa takes a deep breath to steady her racing heart as the grand orchestral music begins to echo through the palace. The royal doors swing wide open as the king proudly announces the arrival of the legendary Child of the Oracle before the entire kingdom. Looking like a divine fairy princess in her shimmering blue ball gown, Melissa steps into the blinding spotlight as all 5 suitors watch her make her grand debut.
Just when you thought high society debut balls were all about sparkles and romance, our grand introduction kicks off with 2 absolute eye-candy suitors stepping into the room like they own the place. On the right, we've got Prince Bernard looking like a stoic, brooding ice king, while bright red-haired Rion beams right behind him, officially kicking off the hunt for the fated flowers. Clap, clap, clap. The entire grand ballroom erupts into enthusiastic applause as the nobles watch the main event unfold. Honestly, look at the scale of this cathedral-like hall. The artist really went all out with the soaring archways and golden chandeliers just to flex on us. Clink! Raising his golden goblet high beneath a massive glowing painting of the Divine Maiden, the king leads the entire room in a grand toast alongside Melissa. Standing there in her breathtaking blue gown, our girl is doing her absolute best to keep her composure in front of the entire kingdom. Slipping away to take a quick breather on a plush velvet chair, Melissa takes a slow sip of her drink and lets out a massive sigh of relief, thinking she somehow managed to survive her terrifying public reveal without crashing and burning. Swish! But there's no rest for the wicked at a royal ball because the romantic orchestra music swells across the room, signaling the arrival of the dreaded opening dance. Out of nowhere, an elegantly gloved hand smoothly cuts through the air right in front of Melissa's face, catching her completely off guard with those big blue eyes wide with shock. It's none other than Prince Bernard himself, stoically demanding the opening dance without a single drop of warmth in his eyes. Trembling inside, Melissa flashes a bright, desperate customer service smile, stammering out that she'd be honored to take his hand.
Violin strings intensify. High up in the golden balcony, the royal orchestra conductor waves his baton as classic ball music fills the starry night, setting the mood for what is bound to be the most stressful dance of Melissa's life. As Bernard glides Melissa across the shiny dance floor, the camera cuts to the sidelines where little Helix is violently pouting with his magic wand out, absolutely fuming while Jude smugly keeps him on mute. Seriously, this kid's salty face is peak comedy. Meanwhile, Merchant Prince Adil stands in the corner sipping his drink with a devious smirk on his face, clearly plotting his next move to steal the spotlight. And right next to him, Knight Rion is just standing there with the purest, most wholesome golden retriever grin on his face, completely unbothered by the heavy political tension floating around the room. Back on the dance floor, Melissa internally notes that Bernard's footwork is surprisingly easy to follow, until bam! Bernard suddenly drops a pitch-black, bone-chilling death glare directly onto her face, making her soul physically leave her body. Talk about an instant mood killer. Drowning under his dark, oppressive aura, Melissa frantically tells herself not to panic and just focus on stepping in time before she makes a fool of herself. Staring out into the shadowed crowd, Melissa feels the heavy, judging eyes of every noble in the room boring into her back like laser beams, multiplying her performance anxiety by 1,000. Reaching her hand out for a dramatic turn, her brain goes into complete overload thinking about how one tiny mistake will ruin her entire reputation. And whoops, clack! Her high heel completely slips on the slick floor, and for a split second, terrifying memories of her toxic past flash before her eyes, with her abusive father screaming that she's totally useless. Man, this poor girl really can't get a break from her trauma. Swoop! Before she can hit the hard marble ground, Bernard catches her midair in a smooth, dramatic dip, wrapping his strong arm around her waist while staring straight into her wide, blushing eyes. Surrounded by floating blue rose petals, Bernard holds her up with absolute royal perfection, turning what could have been a catastrophic viral fail into a cinematic romance scene. Gasps! Applause! The entire ballroom erupts into cheers at the breathtaking recovery, completely convinced that these two just performed a masterfully rehearsed dance step. As the music ends and Bernard turns to walk away, a blushing Melissa timidly reaches out to apologize for messing up, only to get hit with a cold humph from the broody prince. Walking away without even looking back, Bernard delivers an ice-cold verbal slap, coldly criticizing her lack of proper dance skills before sliding out the ornate doors. Bro really has zero social skills, doesn't he? Left all alone inside the grand room, Melissa exhales a tired sigh, wondering how she's going to deal with these high-maintenance princes, when suddenly a loud voice calls out her name. Flock! Instantly, a horde of eager noblemen swarm around her like hungry vultures, bombarding her with competing invitations to dance. Recalling her strict tutor's advice to never pick favorites at social events to avoid starting a political war, Melissa puts on her best polite smile and gently declines them all. But these thirsty aristocrats refuse to take no for an answer, physically shoving each other out of the way while shouting offers of dessert and private chats. Sparkle! The second the word cake hits Melissa's ears, her eyes literally light up with absolute heavenly joy. Turns out 10 years of prison food made her a total sweet tooth addict. Looking up at the gloomy king sipping his wine on the balcony above, Melissa's brain starts spinning with spiral eyes as the overwhelming crowd pressure threatens to break her fragile mind. Tap, tap. Just when she's about to pass out from social exhaustion, a gentle hand lightly taps her on the shoulder from behind. Glow! Priest Jude descends like an actual angel wrapped in holy light, smoothly interjecting that he needs to borrow Lady Melissa to introduce her to someone special. Flashing a serene, beautiful smile, Jude guides her away from the disappointed crowd, leaving the pushy nobles groaning in defeat. Honestly, Jude's timing is so clutch he should be called Saint Rescue. Whispers immediately ripple through the hall as the guests gush over Lord Jude's legendary status as a prodigy high priest, while Rion takes a casual sip from his glass in the foreground. Putting his golden cup down on the table, Rion casually strolls away, keeping his eyes peeled on the shifting dynamics of the room. Out on the quiet, moonlight-drenched balcony, Melissa looks around the peaceful terrace and confusedly asks Jude where this mystery person he wanted to introduce is. Jude turns around with the most deadpan, unbothered expression on his face and casually admits that he totally lied, triggering a hilarious full-volume shriek from Melissa under the starry sky. Closing his eyes with this sweet, ultra-wholesome smile, Jude apologizes for being meddlesome, explaining that he just wanted to rescue her from that suffocating mob. Sitting down on the soft red sofa, Melissa looks at him with pure gratitude, admitting that being surrounded by so many pushy nobles for the first time was completely terrifying. Framed by gorgeous white lilies, Jude bows his head gracefully, softly telling her that helping her is his greatest honor. Look at this lighting and flower aesthetics. The artist is clearly pushing the Jude route hard. Jude instructs her to relax on the balcony while he slips back inside to grab her a refreshing drink and a nice big slice of cake. Blush? Melissa's face turns into a hilarious chibi blank state, completely floored that he saw right through her cravings. Hiding her burning cheeks in shame, Melissa buries herself into the cushions, internally screaming over how embarrassing it is that a high priest caught her obsessing over cake. Hugging a plush white pillow tight against her chest as she gazes up at the endless starry sky, Melissa wonders if she'll ever figure out which one of these wild candidates is her true savior from the past. Eek! Suddenly a blood-curdling, high-pitched scream shatters the night air, making Melissa jump out of her skin and clutch her pillow in absolute terror. Sweating bullets, Melissa's eyes widen as dark, sinister vibes creep into the atmosphere. Someone out in the palace gardens is in deep trouble. Clutching her dress while standing beneath the dim glow of a tall street lamp on the dark balcony, Melissa frantically looks around, trying to figure out where that terrifying scream came from. Glancing back at the brightly lit ballroom windows, she realizes the loud party music completely drowned out the noise inside, meaning she's the only person who heard it. Driven by her pure heart, Melissa abandons her cozy sofa and carefully creeps down the stone stairs into the dark, shadowy palace grounds. Deep within the dark, silent garden courtyard, a young girl's desperate voice echoes through the night, begging an unknown attacker to stay away from her. Grab! A gross, heavily intoxicated noble with a flushed face and a wine bottle in hand aggressively grabs a young maiden by her wrist, drunkenly cornering her against the bushes. Splash! Wine sloshes everywhere as the creepy drunk forcefully slaps his hand right over the poor girl's mouth, completely muffling her desperate cries for help. Cornering the terrified maiden in the dark shadows, the disgusting noble sneers right into her face, whispering vile nonsense, while dark, blood-red liquid splatters across the panel in a chilling climax. Talk about a massive tonal shift. Our girl Melissa's walking straight into a dangerous situation. Just when you think a royal ball is all about glitz and glamour, dark shadows creep into the garden as a creepy noble corners a helpless young maiden, making her scream out in terror for help. Hearing the desperate shrieks echo across the quiet terrace, Melissa rushes to the balcony railing, her heart pounding as she spots the sinister encounter unfolding down below. Looking down with fierce determination, Melissa yells at the creep to let her go, but the gross aristocrat just sneers right back, instantly recognizing her as the famous child of the Oracle. Whoosh! Without losing a single second, the creepy villain aggressively shoves the poor maiden aside, sending her tumbling onto the grass while he sets his eyes on a much bigger target. Staggering through the garden with an unsettling smirk, the drunk noble slowly advances towards Melissa, while she bravely stands her ground and orders him not to come a single step closer. Seriously, this guy has zero survival instincts walking up to our main character like that. Crying on the ground, the saved girl desperately warns Melissa to run away, but the creep just mutters about how capturing the child of the Oracle will guarantee endless wealth and power. Talk about total delusion! The artist literally paints a duck silhouette of Melissa controlled like a puppet on strings, showing just how twisted this guy's plans really are. Swipe! The drunken noble lunges forward with his filthy hands wide open, causing Melissa to reflexively throw her arms up and brace for the absolute worst. Ah! A sharp, painful scream shatters the night air, but when Melissa timidly opens her eyes, she realizes she wasn't the one who got hit. Crunch! Out of nowhere, Knight Rion swoops in like an absolute powerhouse, twisting the villain's wrist in a split second and slamming him straight onto his knees. Now that's what I call flawless hero timing. Glow, flashing his signature wholesome grin right after crushing a creep's bones, Rion casually turns around, leaving a stunned Melissa completely speechless. Looking down at the groaning villain sprawling helplessly across the grass, Rion towering over him instantly shifts the whole energy of the garden. Flipping his red cloak back, Rion demands to know what kind of sick trick the noble was trying to pull on innocent ladies in the dark. Sub-Zero aura activated. In a terrifying split second, Rion's cheerful retriever demeanor completely vanishes, replaced by a pitch-black, lethal death glare that would make even demons shudder. Looking down at the trembling drunk, Rion coldly tells him that even his pathetic screaming sounds utterly disgusting to his ears. Bam! Without hesitation, Rian delivers a swift, brutal stomp straight to the guy's face, telling him to just go to sleep, like an absolute savage. Man, never mess with a knight when he's protective. Restingly grinding his boot into the passed-out villain's head, Rian leaves both Melissa and the rescued girl completely frozen in stunned silence. Hearing the commotion, the royal guards come sprinting into the courtyard, and Rian effortlessly tosses the unconscious trash over to them, ordering them to lock him up immediately. Bowing her head in tears of pure relief, the rescued maiden tearfully thanks Rian, only for the clueless knight to tilt his head and casually ask who she even is. Telling her that she shouldn't bother thanking him, Rian's total indifference causes the embarrassed girl to blush red and scurry away into the night. Honestly, Rian's social awareness is hilariously zero. Watching the girl run off into the distance, Chibi, Melissa, and Rian quietly stare at each other, that at least she seems completely unharmed. Turning toward her savior with a soft, genuine expression, Melissa gently thanks Rian for jumping in right before things got out of hand. Remembering how close she came to absolute disaster, Melissa lowers her head, softly admitting how terrified she truly was. Clutching the fabric of her dress with trembling hands, the lingering trauma of the encounter visibly weighs heavy on her mind. Sparkle! Staring into Rian's warm eyes, her vivid blue gaze glimmers with a mix of vulnerability and deep appreciation. Gently reaching out, Rian takes her gloved hands into his own, softly scolding her for being so ridiculously reckless by confronting a villain alone. Sheepishly looking back at him, Melissa lets out a small, self-deprecating smile, admitting that she definitely acted without thinking. Framed under the gentle moonlight, the two stand together in quiet harmony, looking like an actual fairy tale couple straight off a book cover. Schmooch! Softly raising her hand to his lips, Rian bestows a gentle kiss on her knuckles, tenderly whispering that he simply can't stand seeing her in danger. Splash! But just when the romance style hits a solid 10, a sudden, magical, swirling vortex of water bursts right out of the courtyard fountain, utterly shattering the mood. Zooming out through a mystical water mirror, we reveal little mage Helix sitting back in his grand chair, spying on their every move through his magic orb. As the gentle night air sparkles with magical light, Rian keeps his calm, sweet smile while reaffirming how much he hates seeing her exposed to threat. But dump! Melissa's heart skips a major beat at his words, right up until a massive wave of water violently geysers straight out of the garden pool. Swish! Rian quickly shields Melissa with his heavy velvet cape, looking around in utter confusion as the water cascades everywhere. Whoosh! Descending from the sky inside a floating water tornado, little Helix hovers down with his wand, snarkily demanding to know why they're aggressively flirting in the middle of a garden. Gasping in utter shock, Melissa points her finger at the surprise intruder, completely thrown off by his dramatic entrance. While Chibi Melissa fumes with exaggerated angry anime veins, Rian just stands there looking like an unbothered statue. Pout, Helix immediately explodes into a hilarious childish rage, yelling at Melissa for constantly forgetting his name and calling her Candle Woman yet again. Smirking with maximum sass, Helix pokes his finger in the air, teasing her that if she can't remember simple names, her brain must literally be made out of soft candle wax. Talk about top-tier middle school insults. As Melissa internally screams over his endless teasing, Rian suddenly winces in silence, tightly clutching his head as if a sharp, agonizing headache just struck his brain. Trying to deflect the embarrassment, Melissa turns to Rian and asks if he hates Helix too, while Helix proudly reminds her to mind her manners around important figures. Smile! Rian instantly puts his cheerful facade back on, casually chuckling that he doesn't really care about any of this petty squabbling. Swish! Refusing to buy the innocent act, Helix waves his magic wand and projects a shimmering water screen, revealing a shocking truth right in front of them. The magical water reflection reveals that even when Melissa was hanging out on the balcony with Priest Jude earlier, Rian was secretly watching her from the dark the entire time. Grab! Before Helix can finish spilling the tea, Rian's hand shoots out with terrifying speed, clamping straight over the young mage's jaw to instantly shut him up. Hovering dangerously close, Rian drops his cheerful act completely, warning the little magician that he doesn't care what fancy magic he possesses, unless he dares to pry into his private affairs.
threat intensifies. Squeezing Helix's face with a dark, chilling smile, Rion coldly tells him not to test his patience before casually tossing him aside. Man, Rion's secret yandere vibes are off the charts. Rubbing his sore face with a deep scowl, Helix summons a massive wave of water around his body, coldly bidding them farewell before sinking into the fountain. Plop! With a single ripple across the blue water surface, the arrogant little magician completely vanishes into thin air, leaving the garden dead silent once more. Fuming over the wild chaos that just happened, Melissa vents her frustration, only for Rion to casually wave his hand and announce he's heading back inside to eat cake, leaving poor Melissa totally flabbergasted. As Melissa reflects on the chaotic night, she can't help but reevaluate Rion. Sure, he looked like a gentle knight kissing her hand, but watching him ruthlessly crush a nobleman seconds earlier definitely proved he has a terrifying dark side. Standing alone on the moonlit balcony, Melissa gazes down into the quiet palace courtyard, watching Rion's distant silhouette disappear into the shadows. Peeking out from behind the doorframe, Rion casts one last lingering glance upward before completely slipping away into the darkness. Talk about eerie stealth skills. Tap, tap. Quick footsteps echo across the terrace as High Priest Jude rushes over, calling out to Melissa with visible concern written all over his face. Letting out a heavy sigh of relief, Jude admits how frantic he was about her safety, while Melissa apologizes for running off without thinking. Jude explains that the palace guards completely sealed off the main gates, making it impossible for him to search for her immediately, and you can tell he's genuinely beating himself up over it. Seeing the gentle priest carry so much unnecessary guilt, Melissa feels her heart ache, knowing none of this mess was remotely his fault. Trying to piece the puzzle together, Jude gently asks her what on earth actually went down in the garden during his absence. Sweat drop, remembering Rion's terrifying boot stomp and Helix's dramatic water tornado, Melissa internally freaks out and decides some stories are definitely better left untold. Flashing a bright smile, Melissa assures Jude that she's totally fine and casually credits Rion with swooping in to save the day. Chill. The night breeze suddenly turns freezing as Jude's warm expression instantly vanishes, his eyes narrowing sharply at the mention of Rion's name. Oh boy, rivalry alert. Achoo! Before the tension can escalate, a loud sneeze shatters the awkward silence as Melissa shivers from the crisp night air. Without a second thought, Jude steps close and gently drapes his heavy white ceremonial cloak around her shoulders. Looking down at her with pure warmth, Jude softly scolds her for staying out in the cold night air for way too long. Smiling softly, the gentle priest insists she can't afford to catch a cold, wrapping the oversized cloak tightly around her frame. Seriously, these male leads are competing for the Ultimate Gentleman Award. Blush! Snuggling into the warm mantle, Melissa blushes bright pink while shyly thanking him for the sweet gesture. Clink! Watching the cozy scene unfold from a high balcony window, Lord Adil casually sips his wine, chuckling to himself about how adorably young everyone is acting. Turning toward the surrounding noble ladies who ask if he said something, Adil flashes a smooth, charming smile and tells them to just keep enjoying the party. Smirking into his wine goblet as he watches Jude and Melissa walk together down below, Adil whispers that the real entertainment is only getting started. The scene shifts to the next morning inside Melissa's luxurious dressing room, where her maid Sonia gently brushes her hair while asking if she's feeling exhausted from her grand debut. Slouching over her vanity mirror with a dramatic groan, Melissa collapses in utter exhaustion while Sonia stares in hilarious shock at her lady's complete lack of composure. Sonia gently reminds her that leaving the isolated palace and facing a massive crowd for the first time would drain anyone, urging her to take a well-deserved rest. Click! Thanking her loyal maid with a sweet smile, Melissa bids her goodnight as Sonia quietly bows and closes the double doors. Slide! Once left alone, Melissa quietly steps over to her vanity table and pulls open a small wooden drawer. Clutching a folded letter against her chest, Melissa gazes out at the midnight sky from her balcony, pondering how much everything and everyone has changed over the years. Remembering the lineup of all the suitors, Melissa's mind drifts to a childhood promise, anxiously wondering if that special boy has completely forgotten about her. Sitting on the cold balcony floor with the mysterious letter held close, the sheer realization of how close she came to a tragic fate sends a shiver down her spine. Resting her chin against the railing, Melissa sighs softly, regretting that she didn't even manage to ask for his name back then. Talk about painful nostalgia.
Sunshine! The morning light breaks as Sonia gently taps Melissa's shoulder, softly telling her that it's time to wake up for the day. Yawning sleepily in her cozy bed, Melissa rubs her eyes and asks what important schedule she has lined up today. Swish! Pulling back the heavy window curtains to let the bright sunlight flood the bedroom, Sonia cheerfully announces that today is official moving day. Huh? Chibi Melissa's head instantly spins with giant question marks popping up all around her. Servants hurry across the palace courtyard carrying heavy wooden crates as the narrator explains Melissa's grand relocation process. Seated inside a grand horse-drawn carriage, Melissa learns that as the child of the oracle, she's moving directly into the main royal palace to interact with the bearers of the faded flowers. Step, arriving at the inner royal estate, Melissa follows Sonia down a massive, high-ceilinged marble hallway lined with towering windows. Bow. The head palace maid immediately performs a deep, respectful bow before Melissa, leaving our heroine completely taken aback. Sonia whispers to a stunned Melissa that as the oracle's child, her status actually surpasses even the king, making such grand royal respect completely normal. Talk about an elite promotion. Gulp. Stopping in front of massive, ornate double doors, Melissa nervously asks if this gargantuan room is really supposed to be her personal quarters. Panic. Pointing across the hall, Melissa freaks out when she realizes the royal family's private quarters are literally right next door, while Sonia calmly reassures her it's top-tier security. Tap. A deep, smooth voice suddenly calls out from behind, making Melissa turn around to see a remarkably stylish figure approaching. Sparkle! Dressed in striking turquoise robes with gold armor accents, Lord Adil flashes a drop-dead gorgeous smirk right at her. Exchanging polite bow greetings, the two share a casual, warm hello with chibi smiles all around. Leaning down closer to her face, Adil asks if she's checked out her new room yet, noticing her slight hesitation and guarded body language. Observing her quiet stance, Adil internally notes that the young girl clearly isn't accustomed to sudden life changes just yet. Slam! Throwing caution to the wind, Adil enthusiastically swings open both massive doors, ushering a startled Melissa straight inside. Shimmer! Sunlight streams through gigantic glass windows, revealing a breathtaking private lounge furnished with exquisite gold-trimmed tables and plush armchairs. Surrounded by crystal chandeliers and royal blue tapestries, Adil proudly asks her how she likes her new home, while Melissa stands completely mesmerized by the sheer luxury. Sparkle! Clapping her hands together with glowing eyes, Melissa beams with pure joy, confessing that the room is beyond lovely. Chuckle? Delighted by her genuine reaction, Adil casually strolls right past her into the suite without missing a beat. Watching Adil make himself right at home inside her private quarters, Melissa blinks in utter confusion, wondering why this handsome lord is acting like he lives here too. Just when you think things can't get any weirder, Adil leans against a grand piano looking like he walked straight off a romance novel cover, casually bragging that he furnished this whole suite just for her. Naturally, Melissa's brain completely short-circuits as she gasps in disbelief, realizing her maid, Sonia, actually helped him pick out all this insanely lavish furniture. Trying to maintain her noble manners, Melissa awkwardly stammers out a thank you, sheepishly admitting she doesn't even have a single gift to offer him in return. But before she can finish her polite speech, Adil suddenly reaches out and gently touches her face, completely shattering her personal space bubble. Flashing his trademark smoldering grin, Adil whispers that seeing her adorable face is reward enough before giving a smooth wave and taking his leave. Man, this guy really knows how to play the charming flirt. As he struts down the hallway, Adil secretly ponders how insanely unguarded Melissa is, deciding maybe he should hold back on taking advantage of her, at least for today. Smirking to himself, he figures learning her personal tastes is already a massive win, while poor Melissa stands in front of her vanity mirror still trying to process what just happened. Meanwhile, High Priest Jude watches Adil disappear down the grand corridor, clutching a holy book with a gaze that screams he's keeping a very close eye on this smooth-talking rival. Later that afternoon, Melissa relaxes on her plush sofa with a cup of tea while the head maid gives her the official rundown that life in the main palace is about to get way busier. Pausing mid-sip, Melissa blinks in confusion, wondering what kind of intense royal chaos is about to get dropped on her lap next. Gently placing her porcelain teacup back on the saucer beside a plate of sweet macarons, Melissa braces herself for whatever big announcement is coming. Reassuring her with a calm, professional smile, the head maid tells her not to stress out too much because everything is completely under control.
Right on cue, light footsteps echo near the entrance as the head maid glances toward the door with an expectant expression.
A soft knock signals the arrival of a new face, stepping timidly into the grand living quarters. The head maid proudly presents a cute girl with wavy brown hair, introducing her as Melissa's brand new secondary personal assistant. Beaming like a literal ray of sunshine, the new maid Allie greets Melissa with the most energetic, adorable smile you've ever seen. The head maid explains that while she's off handling palace logistics, Allie will be sticking to Melissa like glue to keep her company and assist her daily needs. Winning over our heroine in less than 2 seconds, Melissa internally swoons over how absolutely adorable and cheerful her new companion is. Honestly, look at these three bonding like old friends already. You love to see a wholesome squad forming in a palace usually teeming with scheming snakes. Breaking out a fresh textbook, Ali excitedly announces that today marks the official start of Melissa's theology lessons, making our girl gasp in surprise. Up until now, theology, the grand study of the Daya religion, was treated like top-secret classified information inside the temple. Flashing back to her dark past, Melissa remembers being surrounded by manipulative hands, knowing the temple kept her ignorant on purpose so they could control her like a puppet. Strolling down the vast palace corridors with Ali leading the way, Melissa's mind races with anticipation for her very first real class. Clenching her fists with fiery determination, Melissa vows that she'll devour every single book and build up her knowledge so no one ever locks her in a cage again. Stepping through the massive archway, Melissa's jaw literally drops as she's greeted by a breathtaking multi-story library dripping in white marble and gold. Both girls stand there with literal star eyes, completely mesmerized by the infinite walls of ancient knowledge. Talk about an absolute paradise for bookworms. Shaken off the awe, Allie offers to run off and fetch her personal tutor, suggesting Melissa check out some interesting reads while she waits. With a bright, enthusiastic smile, Melissa claps her hands together and eagerly sets off to explore the endless shelves. Wandering down the quiet aisles, her eyes lock onto a row of massive, leather-bound ancient tomes perched high above her head. Scaling a small wooden stool, Melissa stretches as high as her tiny frame allows, trying to yank a thick book off the top shelf. The second she gets a grip, the heavy tome drags her down with the sheer weight of a brick, making her groan in utter defeat. Wobbling dangerously on the stool, the massive books slide off the shelf, sending Melissa tumbling backward into midair. Squeaking in pure panic, Melissa closes her eyes, bracing herself for a super painful crash landing onto the hard marble floor. Right before impact, a pair of strong arms instantly catches her from behind, pulling her safely against a soft, white ceremonial robe. Flustered beyond belief, Melissa opens her eyes to find herself cradled like a princess, stammering out that she's totally fine while her face burns beet red. Gently setting her back on her feet, High Priest Jude smiles softly down at her, making sure she didn't sustain a single scratch from the fallen library books. Holding onto his hands for balance, Melissa looks around nervously, wondering aloud when her mysterious new theology tutor is actually going to show up. Soft white lily petals flutter around them as a warm, gentle voice chuckles softly in response. Jude places a hand over his heart with a serene smile, revealing that he is her theology teacher. Cute chibi Melissa completely losing her mind in shock. Bowing awkwardly with a blushing smile, Melissa stammers out her greetings, still processing that the High Priest himself has taken time out of his insane schedule to tutor her. Before diving into dry textbooks, Jude offers to take her on a cozy stroll through the palace to build rapport and show her something truly extraordinary. Walking side by side down the grand arched terrace, Jude begins explaining that standard theology starts with creation myths, but he knows what she really cares about. Jude hits the nail right on the head, pointing out that what Melissa actually wants to understand is the truth behind the oracle and the faded flowers. Nodding timidly, Melissa admits that throughout her life, her caretakers deliberately kept her restricted to basic general education. Jude gently confirms her suspicions, explaining that keeping clerics away was a deliberate plot because deeply religious followers would inevitably try to exploit her divine standing. Jude warns her that the more someone knows about theology, the more dangerous they become, a heavy statement that leaves Melissa deeply lost in thought. Stopping before a grand doorway, Jude softly announces that they finally reached their secret destination. Stepping onto a high marble balcony, a breathtaking view unfolds below them. The royal palace's secret botanical garden filled with glowing lotus ponds and rare magical flowers. Melissa's face lights up with pure, unadulterated joy as she gazes at the stunning floral paradise, completely enchanted by its beauty. Holding her hand on the grand staircase, Jude poetically compares hidden treasures to dangerous magnets that tempt humanity, symbolized by a glowing rose caged like a prisoner, while Melissa vows in her heart that no matter how much people crave her power, she will never let anyone trap her again. Imagine being locked in a cage your whole life, only for a mysterious high priest to hand you the keys to the entire kingdom. High Priest Jude guides Melissa through a breathtaking glass conservatory, poetically explaining that just like the vibrant flowers blooming all around them, she's finally stepped out of the shadows and into the open world, where no one can lock her away again. With sunlight streaming through the crystalline dome and magical butterflies dancing around chandeliers, Jude tells her to go wherever her heart desires because she's officially free. Honestly, this panel looks like a fairy tale dream come true, but you just know in a palace full of schemers, that freedom definitely comes with a catch. Jude acknowledges that true freedom can be a double-edged sword for someone as young and inexperienced as Melissa, though he reminds her that every great chosen figure had to start somewhere. Seriously, this guy speaks exclusively in mysterious riddles, but his calm demeanor makes it almost impossible to tell what his ultimate agenda really is. As a soft flashback memory warms the screen, we see Melissa sharing a cozy, laughing moment with her cute new maid, Ali, and the head maid, highlighting how she's finally building a genuine support system after years of isolation. Gazing out at the vast green gardens through the sweeping glass windows, Melissa takes a deep breath, realizing just how massive and unexplored the world outside her old cage truly is. Turning to her mentor with glowing blue eyes and a radiant blush, Melissa sincerely thanks High Priest Jude for opening her eyes to the world. Jude stands tall and serene in his ceremonial robes, looking every bit like a pristine fantasy model while maintaining that unreadable, gentle gaze. Man, the artist really put 100% effort into making every single male lead look ridiculously majestic. Rattle! Fast forward to post-class reality, where Melissa is trudging down the grand hallway, groaning under a mountain of heavy theology homework, while poor Ali pushes a gilded cart loaded with even more massive tomes. Noticing her tired pace, Elise sweetly checks in to see if she's completely exhausted, but our resilient heroine squeezes her textbook tight and insists she's holding up just fine. Clutching her book against her chest, Melissa reflects that even though studying dense religious history is exhausting, having the power of knowledge is 1,000,000 times better than being kept in the dark. Fired up with sudden motivation, Melissa triumphantly hoists the massive leather-bound book above her head like she's lifting weights at the gym, only to get interrupted by a sudden snicker from behind. I swear her little cute expressions every time she gets passionate are peak comedy. Spinning around in surprise, Melissa finds Lord Adil casually strolling over in his luxurious turquoise robes, chuckling that if she keeps swinging heavy books around with those noodle arms, she's gonna end up taking someone out. Teasing her with a smug smirk, Adil jokes that even if she hit someone with those tiny arms, it wouldn't even leave a scratch, making poor Melissa turn completely pale with embarrassment. Step, step, step. Without saying a word, Chibi Melissa and Chibi Ali instantly start shuffling away sideways like suspicious crabs, trying to create distance between themselves and this overly talkative noble. Trying to play it cool, Melissa awkwardly asks Adil if he came all the way to the palace for some high-level official business, while he casually stands there holding a bouquet of flowers bigger than her entire torso. Look at him, acting like a full-blown romance manga ML on a casual Tuesday. Given a polite bow, Melissa tries to make a quick exit, but Adil immediately blocks her path, smoothly asking if she's really gonna run off without hearing him out first. Tap! In one quick motion, his ornate sandals step right into her path, shutting down her escape plan before it even gets started. Looking up at him with a bewildered tilt of her head, Melissa points out that he literally just said he had super important palace affairs to take care of. Leaning down until his face is just inches from hers, Adil flashes a drop-dead gorgeous smirk, softly revealing that his super important business was actually coming to see the beloved child of the Oracle herself. Talk about maxing out your Riz stats. Cut to a sunny marble balcony where Adil and Melissa are seated across from each other enjoying an elegant tea time. He casually asks if her new private suite meets her standards, while Melissa politely thanks him for arranging such a lavish setup. Closing his eyes with a satisfied nod, Adil decides it's time to drop the casual small talk and dive straight into the real reason he cornered her. Resting his chin on his steepled hands with an intense, penetrating gaze, Adil leans across the table and asks her straight up what she truly desires in this world. Confused by his sudden depth, Melissa assumes he's talking about furniture, but Adil gazes down into his teacup reflection and clarifies that he's asking about her grandest, life-defining ambition. Honestly, the dramatic teacup camera angle goes way harder than it has any right to. Pausing in thought, Melissa lowers her eyes as his heavy question echoes in her mind, taking a moment to unpack what she actually wants for herself. Locking eyes with him across the table, Melissa asks if it's okay for her to answer with absolute, unfiltered honesty. Flashing a warm, encouraging smile, Adil assures her that he wants nothing less than her true, unvarnished thoughts. Leaning forward over the table, Melissa drops a total shocker, whispering that she doesn't even possess enough basic knowledge about the world to even know what to choose or wish for yet. Wow, watching a sweet, innocent girl completely shatter a cocky merchant's standard playbook with sheer raw honesty is so satisfying. Adil's suave smirk completely vanishes as he freezes in place, visibly stunned by an answer he clearly never saw coming in a million years. Blushing slightly at her own vulnerability, Melissa clutches her brooch, standing firmly behind her honest realization. Recovering from his initial shock, Adil's surprise gradually melts into a soft, genuine smile. Breaking out into full-blown laughter, Adil covers his face in total amusement, while a super flustered Melissa pouts and begs him to stop making fun of her. Raising a hand in quick apology, Adil chuckles as chibi Melissa hides her blushing face behind her delicate porcelain teacup. Scratching his head with a self-deprecating laugh, Adil admits that as a filthy rich merchant, he foolishly assumed he could easily buy her affection with lavish gifts and fancy rooms, only to realize her real struggle is something money can't buy. Staring back at him with deadpan blue eyes, Melissa drops yet another truth bomb, directly asking Adil if he's even genuinely interested in her as a person to begin with. As glowing silhouettes of the 5 destiny candidates float in her mind, Melissa reflects that out of all these high-status men, she hasn't felt a single spark of connection with any of them yet, except maybe High Priest Jude, who actually took time to teach her. Crack! The moment the name Jude slips out, dramatic glass shards shatter across the screen as Adil's smoldering gaze instantly turns razor sharp. You can literally feel the room temperature drop as his competitive instincts kick into overdrive. Melissa flinches in surprise, caught completely off guard by the dark, intense aura suddenly radiating off the smooth-talking merchant. Looking down at a silver mirror pendant showing Melissa's portrait, Adil admits that while the ancient prophecy claims whoever wins her heart gets infinite prosperity, he couldn't care less about wealth or status. Leaning across the table with deliberate, heavy intent, his tone shifts from casual flirt to dead serious. Reaching out to gently hold her hand in his, Adil gazes deeply into her eyes, confessing that regardless of prophecies or politics, he feels an undeniable, irresistible affection for her. Hesitating under his fiery gaze, Melissa timidly asks if his overwhelming affection is just a natural side effect of her being the child of the Oracle. He's obsessed, and she's wondering if it's the magic talking. With an intense, unblinking glare, Adil candidly admits that it started out that way, but things have changed. Smoosh. Gently lifting her small hand, Adil bows his head and plants a breathtaking, romantic kiss right onto her knuckles. Man, the hand kiss is truly the undisputed king of historical romance power moves. Wide-eyed and completely speechless, Melissa stands frozen as a deep blush floods her entire face from his sudden move. Backing off with a playful smirk, Adil chuckles softly, apologizing for startling her with such an aggressive display of affection. Standing up beside his chair on the sunlit terrace, Adil smoothly transitions back to his charming merchant persona, cordially inviting her to visit his grand shop whenever she gets time. Waving goodbye as soft white flower petals swirl around him, Adil assures her that she'll always have a VIP welcome waiting at his store. Sitting alone on the high terrace against the backdrop of majestic mountains and bright blue skies, Melissa remains still, taking time to process everything that just transpired. Gazing down at the vibrant flower bouquet Adil left behind while ethereal tarot cards of all 5 male leads float in her thoughts, Melissa wonders if she was too harsh on him. Seeing a montage of the Prince, High Priest Jude, and Lord Adil making their dramatic romantic moves on her, Melissa clenches her fists with unwavering resolve, knowing that if she doesn't stand her ground, she'll easily get swept away by these dangerously handsome men. Talk about an epic setup for the ultimate reverse harem showdown. Just when Melissa thinks she can finally take a quiet breath and sort out her chaotic mind, an ominous dark silhouette creeps right up behind her terrace chair. Talk about zero peace and quiet in this palace. Clutching her head in total distress, poor Melissa has no idea that a mysterious figure is looming over her sunny tea table like a shadow in a thriller movie. Swipe! A gloved hand suddenly reaches out from behind, making Melissa scream at the top of her lungs. Hearing her panic, her faithful maids burst through the doors ready to throw hands. But instead of a dangerous assassin, it turns out to be Sir Rion popping over a chair with a huge, playful grin. Honestly, this guy's entrance score is a solid 10 out of 10 for pure jump scares. Slumping over the table in sheer exhaustion, Melissa groans while Rion casually chuckles about surprising her, completely unbothered by the heart attack he almost caused. Turning to the surprised headmaid, Rion smoothly announces that he's taking Melissa out for a trip into town right this second to clear her stressed head. Leaning down with a soft, sparkling smile, Rion gently reassures a wide-eyed Melissa that a nice little break outside the palace walls is exactly what the doctor ordered. Cut to the palace courtyard, where a magnificent brown horse and stable hands are waiting at the grand gates as Melissa steps out in a gorgeous cream outing dress. Hearing her footsteps, Rion turns around with that bright, golden retriever energy that instantly brightens up the entire courtyard. Rion immediately showers her with sweet compliments, admiring her new outfit and how perfectly her maid styled her hair for her very first outing. Seriously, check out the super cute chibi panel of her maids Sonia and Ali going full beast mode with hairbrushes to make sure their girl looks 100 flawless. Best hype team ever. Path clear, Rion pat the horse's flank and casually tells Melissa to hop on up, acting like riding a massive stallion is as easy as sitting on a couch. Looking up at the giant horse with total hesitation, Melissa timidly admits that while she's ridden in carriages, she's never actually been on a horse in her entire life. Guiding her hand gently onto the saddle, Rion explains the basics, while Melissa reflects on how overwhelmed she's felt by fate, yet somehow feels safe around his warm presence. Gathering all her courage, Melissa takes a leap of faith to mount the horse. Flop! Oh man, absolute tragedy. Melissa completely overshoots and lands face first over the horse's back like a limp sack of flour. The artist absolutely nailed this comedy timing. Bright red with pure humiliation, chibi Melissa clings to the saddle for dear life, while Rion holds back a laugh and reassures her that everybody fails their first try. Swinging up smoothly behind her, Rion gently positions her into the saddle and tells her to relax while holding the reins securely in his grip. Clack, clack! As the horse begins to walk smoothly through the gates, Melissa's jaw drops in awe as she feels the gentle sway of her very first horse ride. Jolt! Suddenly the horse steps over a rough bump, causing Melissa to lose her balance with a startled gasp. Without missing a beat, Rion wraps his arm securely around her waist, pulling her tight against his chest while warning her to hold on close for safety. Squeezing her eyes shut in embarrassment, Melissa stammers out an apology, but Rion just gives a soft, tender laugh and tells her she's doing just fine. Man, look at this gorgeous background lighting as they ride slowly down a dappled forest path. The cozy romance vibes are off the charts right now. Step, step, step. The horse's hooves splash softly through the lush green grass near the riverbank, surrounded by blooming wild white flowers. Arriving at the scenic river edge across from the kingdom's bustling settlement, the horse stops to take a well-deserved drink while Rion points across the water. As dusk falls over the kingdom, the grand stone bridge and colorful river town light up with thousands of glowing magical lamps reflecting over the rippling water. Looking out at the breathtaking view, Melissa's blue eyes sparkle with pure wonder, completely captivated by a world she's never seen before. Looking down at her glowing expression, Rion softly reveals that this exact magical view was what he wanted to gift her all along. For a quick second, Melissa wonders if his overwhelming kindness is just because of her title as the Child of the Oracle. But Rion's genuine smile instantly silences her doubts. Turning back to him with a radiant, blushing smile, Melissa's heart completely melts as she genuinely embraces this blissful moment. Fast forward into the town market, and our duo is living their best life, munching on savory grilled meat skewers and sipping sweet fruit juice from wooden mugs. While strolling past the illuminated vendor stalls in her cozy hooded cloak, a stunning, intricate blue stained glass brooch catches Melissa's eye. Stopping in her tracks, Melissa admires the shimmering floral ornament, and Rion warmly agrees that it matches her beautiful vibe perfectly. Remembering that she didn't bring a single coin of money and that Rion's been paying for everything, Melissa internally panics and tries to walk away, despite secretly loving it. But Rion reads her like an open book. In one smooth move, he buys the brooch on the spot and casually drops it right into her open hands. Clasping her hands together in flustered embarrassment, Melissa stammers that she can't pay him back, but Rion just waves it off with total casual coolness. Holding the glowing accessory close to her chest, Melissa looks up with bright, emotional eyes and thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Tease. Leaning in close, Rion smirks playfully and whispers that maybe he will demand something in return after all, gently lifting her chin. Adjusting her hood, he softly requests that she wear the brooch for him on the ride home, promising her with a warm look that it'll look absolutely adorable on her. Heart pounding with excitement, Melissa eagerly promises, and the two hold hands tightly as they head down the stone steps toward a cozy local tavern. Inside the warm, candlelit tavern, they settle down at a rustic wooden booth for a nice, relaxing dinner. Cupping the stained glass brooch in her palms, Melissa can't stop staring at her beautiful new treasure like a kid on Christmas morning. Chuckling affectionately at her innocent joy, Rian tells her to save it for later as the tavern host arrives with a heavy tray of food. Slam! The server drops a massive, steaming platter of thick stew onto their table, instantly snapping Melissa out of her cute romance trance. Looking down at the dish, Melissa tilts her head in total confusion at the dark, hearty mixture of beans and chunky pork before her. While Rion happily digs in with his fork, raving about how delicious local tavern comfort food is, poor Melissa sits there sweating bullets. Staring at the dark, bubbling stew, Melissa's face turns pale as she realizes this rugged commoner meal looks absolutely nothing like palace cuisine. Gulp, suspicious dark aura floats off the plate as Melissa clutches her fork, genuinely questioning if her delicate stomach can even survive a single bite of this. Shaken off her fear with dramatic inner resolve, Melissa decides to be brave for Rion and raises her fork high for the ultimate taste test. Chomp! Taking a massive, courageous bite, Melissa's face lights up as Rion bursts into cheerful laughter, thrilled that his royal partner actually loves the local feast. Expecting a complete disaster, Melissa hesitantly takes a bite, but the moment the flavor hits her tongue, her blue eyes pop open in absolute shock. It's actually incredible! Her mouth practically sparkles with delight as she gushes about how amazing it tastes, while Rian smugly grins, totally confident in his local food recommendations. Happily munching away, Melissa admits she's genuinely impressed, wondering how a humble tavern dish could taste this ridiculously good compared to fancy palace cuisine. Pointing at the hearty plate of seasoned meat and beans, Rian breaks down the culinary secret, explaining that proper preparation and draining the blood properly makes all the difference. Chuckle. Sitting back with a playful grin, Rian leans across the wooden table looking ready to spill some juicy local gossip to his royal partner. He reveals that the guy supplying the tavern's meat is actually a former priest who left the Holy Order to become a butcher. Talk about a crazy career pivot. Gasps all around. Melissa's jaw drops as she pieces it together, asking if that means her dinner was literally blessed and purified with holy magic before hitting the pan? Nodding with a proud smirk, Rian confirms her theory. Honestly, getting your pork chop holy blessed by an ex-priest is top-tier fantasy dining. Clap! Beaming with excitement, Melissa praises Rian for knowing all the cool hidden spots in town, completely charmed by his effort to cheer her up. Leaning over the table, Rian gives her a sly, meaningful look, asking if she understands what making this secret spot special really implies. Doki doki! Resting his chin on his gloved hands with a soft, radiant smile, Rian whispers that this tavern spot will be their little secret getaway from now on. Her heart skips a total beat. Staring at his ridiculously handsome smiling face, Melissa freezes like a deer in headlights as her cheeks burn bright red. Panic. To cover up her flustered heart rate, Chibi Melissa suddenly starts wildly waving her fork around, yelling that she'll eat the whole platter herself if he doesn't hurry up. Cut to a stunning wide shot of the warm, bustling tavern atmosphere. The cozy candlelight, wooden rafters, and lively crowd make this date scene feel so grounded and sweet. Stumble. Fast forward to them leaving, and poor Melissa is practically groaning with every step up the stone stairs, clutching her stuffed stomach in utter defeat. Grab! Just as she staggers, Rian smoothly swoops in from behind, wrapping his arm around her shoulders to steady her against his chest. Flustered beyond belief by the sudden physical contact, Melissa squeaks out his name, trying to recover what little dignity she has left. Looking down with that effortless golden retriever charm, Rion softly apologizes with an innocent smile, asking if he caught her off guard. Turning her blushing face away, Melissa stammers out that she wasn't startled at all. Yeah, right, girl. Your beet-red face is betraying you completely. Teasing her mercilessly, Rian smirks down at her, playfully asking if she plans on holding on to him like a koala bear forever. Shock! Realizing that she's still subconsciously gripping his vest for dear life, Melissa's blue eyes go wide with instant panic. Shove! Pushing him away with all her remaining strength, flustered chibi Melissa yells at him to stop teasing her, while Rian just bursts into laughing fits. Adjusting her dark hood, Melissa quickly changes the subject, pointing out that the night is getting late and they better head back before the guards notice. Gentle smile, Rian softly places his hand on her hooded head, promising with a tender look that he'll definitely bring her out on another secret trip again soon. Clip clop! Back on the horse, the two ride smoothly through the dark moonlit forest, with Rian softly asking if she enjoyed her day out in the real world. Turning back with a gentle expression, Rian insists that whenever she wants to visit the town, she has to let him be her escort so he can keep her safe. Wrapping his arms tightly around her waist as he leans down against her shoulder, Rian whispers that he simply can't bear the thought of her getting hurt. Resting back against his warm chest, Melissa reflects on how completely free and happy she felt today. No strict palace rules, no political pressure, just pure bliss. Dramatic shift, but as Melissa looks ahead, Rian's playful eyes suddenly turn deathly serious and cold in the shadow of the palace walls. Wait, what is he hiding? Clasping the glowing blue brooch tightly over her heart, Melissa comes to a deep realization about her growing feelings for him. Nestling closer into his arms under the starry sky, she softly thanks Rian in her heart, knowing he was the one who gave her this unforgettable taste of freedom. Meanwhile, back inside the gloomy palace, a mysterious dark-robed spy knocks heavily on the grand ornate doors of a private study. Sitting at a massive wooden desk, the prince permits entry, receiving a dark, confidential report regarding the child of the oracle's secret movements. Crackle! Reading the letter, the prince's eyes narrow into a menacing glare as dark, suffocating magic begins oozing from his pen. Woof! A heavy dark aura swirls around a golden royal crown in the shadows. Turns out the political power struggle behind the scenes is getting downright lethal. Back in the Grand Palace hallway, Rian escorts Melissa safely back to her quarters, acting completely casual like he didn't just exude dark assassin energy 2 minutes ago. Spotting her arrival, her loyal maids Sonia and Ali run up with huge, relieved smiles, greeting their precious lady home. Brightening up instantly, Melissa greets her maid team, thrilled to see them waiting for her after such an eventful evening. With a gentle bow, Rian smoothly takes his leave, offering to head out so Melissa can finally get some well-deserved rest. As her maids guide her down the brightly lit corridor, Melissa hesitates and glances back over her shoulder at his retreating back. Watching Rian walk away down the empty hallway, a wave of gratitude washes over her, realizing she didn't get to properly say goodbye. Turning around on a dime, Melissa calls out his name at the top of her lungs, stopping Rian right in his tracks. Holding her hand against her chest where the stained glass brooch shines, Melissa blushes furiously as she shouts a heartfelt thank you for today. Swoon! Turning back with the softest, most melting smile imaginable, Rian bids her a warm good night. Man, this guy's visual power is downright illegal. Radiating pure happiness, Melissa beams back, wishing him a sweet good night as her heart flutters out of her chest. Giving a cute, polite curtsy, Melissa bows deeply to her knight before turning back toward her private chambers. Click-clack! Heading back inside, Melissa looks down at her travel boots, still riding the emotional high of her very first grand outing in the mortal world. But as soon as the doors close, Rian flips his dark hood up over his crimson hair and steps out onto the quiet palace terrace. Whoosh! Without a second thought, Rian flings himself off the high balcony ledge, dropping straight down into the pitch-black night like an absolute shadow assassin. Whoosh! Vaulting across the palace rooftops at superhuman speed, Rian disappears into the night sky. Talk about a massive cliffhanger. Who is this guy really? Just when you think a romantic evening is wrapped up in a nice little bow, nightfall brings out the absolute deadliest political snakes. As Rian vanishes into the moonlit night, Prince Julian stands high in his tower room, glaring down through the glass window while bitterly sneering at that mysterious rogue knight. Footsteps. Hearing a quiet rustle behind him, Julian turns around to find Lord Leon, the green-haired noble, standing casually in his private quarters, prompting the prince to instantly fire back with a sharp, sarcastic remark. Crossing his arms with a cold, condescending glare, Julian demands to know why a holy church figure is creeping around the palace depths at midnight, asking point blank if he's trying to get his hands on the child of the oracle. Leon just keeps that unreadable, polite smile locked on his face, smoothly claiming he simply wants to avoid becoming an enemy of his own prince, though Julian clearly isn't buying his fake loyalty for a single second. Honestly, check out Leon's expression here. This guy has the ultimate poker face. You could tell him the palace is on fire, and he'd still hit you with that serene anime saint smile. Clenching his hand tightly against the wall, Julian stares at the faint pink flower mark glowing on his skin, inwardly cursing the growing mess surrounding the oracle's awakening. Crackle! A sinister dark shadow looms over a royal crown behind him as Julian mutters how thoroughly annoying this whole situation is, deciding to let things play out for now. Hearing the prince's reluctant stand down, Leon gives a subtle, satisfied smile, proving once again that he always gets the reaction he wants without raising his voice. Turning back toward the heavy exit doors, Julian coldly reminds him that even if the faded flower is an exception, he better start showing some actual respect to his royal authority. Leon lowers his head in a graceful bow, whispering that if he isn't the one chosen by the oracle, he'll gladly take the charge of treason, though he adds with a smirk that such a day is way too far off to worry about. Click! With a polite goodnight, Leon steps out into the hallway, leaving the prince alone in his dim study to brood over his grand plans. But wait, standing in the shadows right outside, the foreign prince Aiden leans against the wall holding a bouquet of white roses, muttering to himself about how downright terrifying Leon actually is when he's being polite. Fast forward to the next day, and while sweet Melissa is sitting in her sunlit lounge sipping tea, her reflection in the water magic reveals someone is secretly scrying on her from afar. Flashback frames ripple through her mind, remembering how tenderly Rion framed her face under her dark hood and asked her to wear his gift. Look at those sparkling blue eyes. Melissa is officially down bad. The romance web is spinning, and she doesn't even care that half the palace is plotting around her. Swoosh! Back in the dark library, a mysterious hooded shadow suddenly materializes right behind the blue-haired genius mage who is spying on her. Gasp! The young mage nearly leaps out of his skin as Rion drops straight out of stealth mode, leaning over his desk with an insanely smug grin. Draping a glowing red crystal pendulum between his fingers, Rion chuckles darkly, asking the mage if he really thought black market magic tools could bypass his spatial awareness. Glare! Rion's playful smile turns razor sharp as his golden assassin eyes flash under his hood, making the poor mage freeze in total terror. Step, strutting around the wooden desk, Rion calls out the young prodigy, pointing out that he's been sneaking peeks at Melissa ever since her grand debutante ball. Panic! Sweating bullets, the blue-haired mage frantically tries to defend himself, stammering that he wasn't stalking her on purpose. Rion drops his smile completely, leaning right into his face and bluntly telling him that no matter how he slices it, creeping on girls through magical water bowls is pure stalker behavior. Blushing with utter embarrassment, the young mage looks away, inwardly reflecting on how the divine oracle's magical aura triggers feelings in his heart that he's never felt in his entire life before. A glowing memory of Melissa bathed in ethereal light flashes across his mind. Man, every male lead in this series is catching feelings at record speed. Slam! Rion shuts down his tragic romantic monologue instantly, deadpanning that he isn't a licensed therapist and they definitely aren't best friends. Leaning down to eye level with a threatening sneer, Rion gives him one final crystal-clear command. Stop spying on her right now. Flick! Turning on his heel toward the heavy exit doors, Rion nonchalantly head out, leaving the flustered mage gasping for breath. Creak! But right as his hand touches the iron latch, Rion drops a chilling parting threat. If he catches him peeking through magic again, he'll slice first and ask questions later. Left alone in the silence of his massive library, the terrified mage gulps hard, immediately deciding that upgrading his personal barrier magic needs to be his top priority today. Meanwhile, high inside the Grand Royal Council room, the king gathers his top ministers around a massive mahogany table to address reports of enemy skirmishes along the border. The nobles look visibly anxious, turning toward the chubby high priest to ask for his spiritual evaluation on the threat posed by the Demistry Empire. Unrolling an intricate parchment map of Phaedon, the king reassures the table that crossing the treacherous mountain range is an absolute nightmare, even for seasoned foreign armies. The high priest nods along with a gentle, reassuring smile, agreeing that an invading force would never be able to deploy a massive army all at once. A stunning battle portrait spreads across the map, showcasing the kingdom's ultimate combat quartet, the blue-haired mage, Prince Julian, Rion, and Prince Aiden, proving their magic and steel are worth 1,000 men. The arrogant old ministers burst into comfortable laughter, boasting that any foolish invader would get swallowed up by desert sands before taking a second step. Sneer. But as the old men laugh, the blue-haired glasses minister scoffs in total disgust, privately calling them foolish, overly optimistic badgers who are completely blind to reality. Bowing respectfully to the king, the sneaky advisor pretends to agree out loud, while secretly scheming to kidnap the child of the oracle and summon Bernard tomorrow. Birds chirping. The next morning dawns bright and beautiful over the palace gardens, casting warm sunlight across the pristine white marble balconies. Yawn. Inside her luxurious private suite, Melissa stretches her arms high in her silk nightgown, waking up feeling completely recharged after her wild night out in town. Her loyal maid duo, Sonia and Allie, enter the room with warm, glowing smiles, cheerfully greeting their lady good morning. Beaming with absolute sunshine energy, Melissa greets them back. Seriously, her morning glow could cure depression. Sitting down at her elegant vanity mirror, Melissa relaxes as Sonia begins gently brushing her long, silvery white hair. Glancing sideways with a cute, subtle blush, Melissa's eyes wander over toward her bedside table. Resting on a gilded trolley right next to her bed is a stack of ancient books and magical texts from her study sessions. A romantic dreamscape montage floats through her thoughts, sparkling flowers, sweet moments with the male leads, and Rion holding her tight against his chest in the dark. Blush! Realizing how deeply she's swooning over yesterday's secret date, Chibi Melissa buries her glowing pink cheeks in her hands, completely overwhelmed by embarrassment. Ding! Suddenly, a light bulb pops into her head as she remembers the special promise she made to Rion right before they parted ways. Holding up the glittering stained glass barrette in her hands, Melissa eagerly asks Sonia if she can style her hair with it for today's outfit. As Sonia compliments how stunning the accessory looks on her, Melissa proudly gushes that Sir Rion said the exact same thing, so she wants to wear it when she goes to see him. Sonia gives a sympathetic, nervous smile, gently breaking the news that seeing Rion today might be impossible, since her royal schedule is completely packed with official events. Just when Melissa thinks she can catch a break, the ominous silhouette of the king looms over her mind like a final boss entering the room. Talk about a heart-stopping reality check right after her sweet date. Standing before the towering golden gates of the royal chamber, Melissa and her two faithful maids take a collective deep breath as the heavy atmosphere settles in. Clenching her fists in front of her mint green dress, Melissa tries to steady her nervous heart, knowing that whatever lies behind those doors could completely rewrite her destiny. Creak! The massive doors slide open to reveal the king staring out toward the sunlit windows, while a blue-haired royal attendant bows deeply to announce her arrival. Turning around with an intimidating regal presence, His Majesty dryly welcomes Melissa into his private quarters, sending a sudden wave of panic straight down her spine. Honestly, check out her adorable shocked face in the panel below. Girl looks like she just got called to the principal's office. Clink! As hot tea is poured into porcelain cups, the king sits across from her on the plush sofa and bluntly asks how her relationship with the faded flowers is coming along, leaving Melissa stammering in total uncertainty. Adjusting his glasses, the king's advisor stands quietly in the background as His Majesty sighs, pressing her further on whether any of the candidates have managed to steal her heart yet. Sucking in a nervous breath, Melissa tightly clutches her teacup and sheepishly admits that it's far more complicated than simply picking a favorite guy out of a lineup. Whoosh! A dark, suffocating shadow creeps across the room, wrapping around Melissa's thoughts as the sheer weight of royal pressure begins to choke the air right out of her lungs. Feeling utterly trapped under the king's piercing gaze, Melissa tries to keep her composure, only for His Majesty to drop the ultimate question, asking where his own son, Prince Bernard, stands on her list. A funny little flashback cloud pops up in her head, imagining the arrogant, golden-haired prince scoffing at her terrible dancing skills. Naturally, Melissa awkwardly laughs it off, claiming they haven't really gotten the chance to bond properly yet. Rustle. Standing up from his throne-like couch, the king coldly decides he's taken matters into his own hands, announcing that today is the day they fix that little problem. Creak! The heavy wooden doors crack open just a sliver, revealing Prince Bernard peeking through the shadow with an unreadable look on his face, while the king commands her to get acquainted immediately.
Surrounded by a dramatic flourish of blue roses, Prince Bernard gracefully steps into the room, causing poor Melissa to internally scream in utter disbelief. You gotta love how this manhwa drops flower visual effects every time a main lead enters. It's pure peak romance webtoon energy.
Step, step. Without turning around, the king strides right past his son, leaving the two young royals alone in the colossal, echoing hall. Pat. Pausing for just a second, His Majesty places a stern hand on Bernard's shoulder with a firm warning to make things work, receiving a disciplined, quiet nod from the prince. Panic. As the heavy door shut, Melissa's brain instantly goes in a full meltdown mode as she stammers out a polite greeting, inwardly convinced the stoic prince secretly despises her guts. Slam. Settling onto the sofa right across from her, Bernard drops all polite small talk and fires off a dead serious question point blank. Who is she actually planning to choose? Zap! A shockwave of pure surprise hits Melissa square in the chest. Talk about zero chill. This guy really walked in and immediately demanded a full romantic update. Sweat beading on her forehead, Melissa looks away and timidly explains that she's still trying to figure things out, which only earns her a cold, disappointed sigh from the prince. Leaning back against the cushions, Bernard brutally shuts down any friendly chatter, stating that his personal feelings and royal duties are completely separate from her little dilemma. Clench. Melissa tightens her fists in her lap as frustration bubbles inside her. How dare he speak so coldly when he doesn't have a single clue about the overwhelming pressure resting on her shoulders? A grand cosmic map spreads across her mind, showing her standing surrounded by all 5 faded flowers, Rion, Julian, Leon, Aiden, and the blue-haired mage, realizing that staying passive will only cause more chaos for everyone involved. Silence hangs heavy over the room as Prince Bernard watches her closely, waiting for his words to finally sink into her head. Glare! Zooming in on Bernard's intense blue eyes, you can tell he's wrestling with his own internal storm, acknowledging that while Melissa isn't to blame for this chaotic fate, time is rapidly running out. Leaning forward with dead seriousness, Bernard strictly warns her that she must set an official deadline, cautioning that delaying her choice any longer will put her very life in severe danger. Melissa stares back in utter shock, the stark reality of his warning washing over her like a bucket of ice water. Resting his hands in his lap, the prince reveals the clock is officially ticking. The kingdom's massive founding festival is taking place in exactly 6 months. Think. The mention of the founding festival instantly sparks a memory in Melissa's mind as she recalls her maid describing the grand event. Splash! A soothing flashback frames a young Melissa gazing at vibrant blue hydrangeas while her maid explains that the grand festival takes place during the rainy season, earning it the poetic title of the Festival of Graceful Rain. Bernard elaborates that during the 3 days of grand banquets filled with foreign dignitaries, Melissa will be required to publicly announce her chosen faded flower in front of the entire world. Gulp. Melissa swallows hard as the reality of a 6-month deadline settles deep into her heart. No more running away, no more hiding behind vague answers. Taking a deep breath, the silver-haired heroine closes her eyes, mentally preparing herself to take full control of her own destiny once and for all. Noticing the subtle shift in her posture, Bernard quietly leans back, content that she finally understands the gravity of the situation. Sparkle. Looking him straight in the eyes with absolute determination glowing in her blue irises, Melissa firmly promises that when the festival arrives, she will make her final choice. Check out Bernard's expression here. He completely expected her to fold under pressure, but her fierce resolve totally caught him off guard. Step! Meanwhile, in a sunlit sanctuary surrounded by blooming flowers, a mysterious hooded figure steps forward through the pristine marble columns, setting the stage for the next hidden player on the board. Turning around with that trademark saintly smile, Lord Leont, the green-haired nobleman, smoothly greets a young visitor who just entered the sacred courtyard. Stepping into the light with a gentle, timid demeanor is Lady Cocotte, looking absolutely adorable in her formal noble attire. Blush? Blushing furiously in cute chibi form, Lady Cocotte stammers that she was looking for Priest Jude, but Leon instantly steps up with ultimate charm, offering to listen to whatever troubles her heart. Leaning down with a radiant halo of sparkles, Leon uses his irresistible charm offensive. Seriously, this guy's gentle priestly act is so smooth it should honestly be registered as a weapon. Step, step. Guiding her tenderly by the hand, Leon escorts the flustered noblewoman into the towering, breathtaking grand cathedral.
Chill. But as they walk past the altar flowers, a cold narration reminds us that behind Leon's angelic front lies a mastermind whose political schemes are rapidly starting to unfold.
Sitting down across from him in the private library, Lady Cocotte takes a sip of tea and nervously confesses that she experienced a horrifying ordeal at the recent evening banquet.
Gasp! A dark memory flashes across the screen, showing a sleazy, drunken noble grabbing her in the dark shadows before a brave knight suddenly intervened to save her.
Tears. Covering her face in distress, Coco recounts how terrifying the violent confrontation was, while Leon maintains a deeply sympathetic, attentive expression. Wiping away a stray tear, the young lady admits she's just relieved to be safe, giving heartfelt thanks to the mysterious knight who rescued her. But her voice drops into a sad whisper as she admits that the knight didn't even glance at her once, making her feel completely invisible and unimportant. Looking down from above the quiet library, Leon softly asks why she feels that way, to which Cocotte solemnly answers that the knight's eyes were completely locked on someone else, the child of the oracle, Melissa. Glow! The scene finishes on a breathtaking portrait of Melissa, bathed in ethereal light and divine sparkles, reminding us that no matter where the drama unfolds, every single path inevitably leads right back to our main heroine. Whisper, out of nowhere, Priest Jude interrupts the heavy silence in the library, looking down at Lady Cocotte with that unnervingly calm expression of his. Clasping her hands together as if in deep prayer, Cocotte's eyes wobble with insecurity as she pours out the rest of her dramatic encounter. Clench? Her fingers dig into her sleeves as she solemnly admits that the knight who stepped in to rescue her was actually one of the legendary faded flowers. Sparkle! She dramatically envisions the knight and Melissa locking eyes in a romantic halo of roses? Seriously? This girl built an entire K-drama in her head just from watching two people stand near each other. Jude listens with his trademark serene smile, smoothly reassuring her that the divine gods were clearly watching over her safety. Gasp! Wiping away her worry, Cocotte looks up at him like he's an actual saint sent straight down from the heavens. She beams with gratitude, declaring Jude is the only person who truly cares about her troubles, while he sits there looking like the world's most peaceful therapist. Step, step. Giving a polite curtsy, Cocotte finally takes her leave, stepping out into the sprawling, sun-drenched sanctuary courtyard. Walking down the massive stone hallway, flanked by two devoted church acolytes, Jude's holy ambience remains totally intact. Glare. But check out his expression when the camera zooms in. That warm, gentle smile vanishes instantly into a cold, unreadable gaze. Man switching emotional modes faster than a light switch. Silence! The grand marble statue of Justice looms over the sanctuary, holding her scales in perfect balance as the heavy silence settles in. Cut to our main heroine, Melissa, in the stunning glass greenhouse, flipping through a book while her brain spirals over the ticking 6-month deadline before the Festival of Graceful Rain. Startle! Melissa snaps out of her doom spiral with wide, glossy eyes as a smooth voice suddenly calls out her name. Sitting right across from her, Jude points out that she seems completely out of it today, causing poor Melissa to bow her head in instant embarrassment. Thud. Gently clapping his green textbook shut, Jude decides it's time to put a pause on their intense study session. Melissa blinks in surprise, realizing her lack of focus has officially derailed their lesson. Sigh. A dark shadow of anxiety swirls in her mind. How can she be so distracted when Jude has taken time out of his busy schedule to personally tutor her? Seeing her inner turmoil, Jude smoothly suggests taking a little break and going for a peaceful stroll. Holding out his hand with peak male lead charm, he invites her outside to get some fresh air and clear all that mental clutter. Rustle! The ambient sound of rustling leaves fills the air as they wander into a breathtaking conservatory filled with vibrant red roses and floating lotus blossoms. Gazing around the glowing greenhouse, Melissa can't help but feel her stress melt away. Seriously, the background artist went all out on this floral budget. Looking over his shoulder, Jude's soft profile radiates pure, heavenly grace. Melissa smiles softly, remembering how Jude has been a constant source of comfort and encouragement ever since she arrived. Watching his peaceful demeanor, she internally muses that serving as a priest truly feels like his divine calling. Flip! But a sudden memory flashes in her mind, a mysterious portrait in an ancient book showing a green-haired child with a shadowed face. Snap! Dark flashback imagery hits as she remembers a cruel noble raising a whip over a terrified child, causing Melissa to tightly clench her dress in determination. Turning around to face him, Melissa takes a deep breath, determined to extract any clue that could lead her to the missing child. Looking him dead in the eye, she asks Jude directly if he remembers anything from his own childhood days. Jude's expression freezes for a split second as her question echoes in the air, his lips barely moving as he repeats the word child. Think! Trying to jog his memory, Melissa gently asks if he recalls any sweet moments with his family or parents. Dead silence. An eerie quiet drops over the rose garden as Jude stands completely frozen, his eyes totally devoid of light. Realizing the sudden shift in atmosphere, Melissa panics, instantly regretting bringing up such a sensitive topic. Smile! Just as quickly as the chill hit, Jude puts his gentle smile back on, reassuring her that it's completely fine. Splash! Looking down at the tranquil lotus pond, he softly reveals the tragic truth. He no longer has a family to speak of. Shock! A brutal flashback cuts through the panel, showing a bloody blade next to a fallen green-haired child, sending a jolt of pure horror through Melissa's eyes. With a faint, heartbreaking smile, Jude calmly explains that his entire family was brutally murdered right before his very eyes. He adds that the severe trauma wiped out most of his early memories, leaving him with only vague fragments before waking up in the church cathedral. Gently folding his hands, Jude apologizes for not being able to help her search, claiming his past just isn't worth talking about. Tears! Tears pool in Melissa's blue eyes as her heart shatters for him, begging him not to smile like that when his heart is clearly hurting. Clench, the haunting image of a terrified, neglected child in rags overlaps with the present as Melissa reaches out and tightly grabs his hand in pure empathy. Tears stream down her cheeks as she repeatedly apologizes for accidentally tearing open his old wounds. Swipe! Pulling out a clean white handkerchief, Jude gently reaches out to catch the stray tear falling down her face. Doki doki! Look at this close-up panel. Jude tenderly wipes her tears with such warm, affectionate eyes that you can practically feel the romance points skyrocketing. Breeze. A gentle breeze carries flower petals through the conservatory as the two sit side by side on a grand white bench. Asking if she feels a bit better, Jude chuckles softly while Melissa sheepishly excuses her emotional outburst. Smiling warmly, Jude praises her kind heart, but gently requests that she never waste her tears worrying over his past. Sitting close together, a magical aura of sparkling light surrounds them in the peaceful garden sanctuary. Blush! Clasping her hands to her racing chest, Melissa blushes furiously. This guy's gentle words are an absolute critical hit to the heart. Zap! But just as Jude casually asks what's on her mind, a dark realization suddenly strikes Melissa's brain like a bolt of lightning. Zoom in. Staring at him with wide, analytical eyes, Melissa remembers that long ago, someone else said those exact same comforting words to her, and the plot thickens big time. Talk about a plot twist that hits right in the feels. Just when you think our girl Melissa is about to fall completely for Jude's heavenly charm, she smiles softly and admits that his comforting words brought back a flood of long-forgotten memories. Jude's eyes widen just a fraction before that trademark angelic smile returns, softly taking in her words as the golden sunlight filters into the greenhouse. Gently closing his eyes with a nostalgic look, Jude murmurs that his little sister used to be the biggest crybaby in the world, making you realize just how deep his gentle nature really goes. A warm memory flashes across the screen showing a young Jude tenderly placing a handmade flower crown on his weeping little sister's head. Seriously, can this guy get any more like a dream male lead? Giggle! Melissa lets out a genuine, airy laugh, her face flushing a sweet shade of pink as Jude's wholesome story instantly melts away all the heavy tension between them. Sitting back on the ornate marble bench, Jude gazes out toward the lush greenery, his peaceful posture looking straight out of a high fantasy romance novel. Breeze. The camera pans out to show the breathtaking conservatory, blue butterflies fluttering amidst blooming flowers under a towering glass dome, while time seems to completely stand still. Looking back at her with soft, affectionate eyes, Jude quietly admits that Melissa reminds him so much of his lost sister, dropping an emotional bomb on our heroine. Gasp! Melissa's eyes snap wide open in pure shock. Wait, did he just hit her with the ultimate brother zone out of nowhere, or is there a deeper secret hidden behind that compliment? Chibi Squad! Instantly shrinking into cute chibi form, Melissa pouts furiously with puffed-up cheeks, while Jude just sits there giving her a mischievous little chuckle. Honestly, these chibi transitions give me life. Offering his hand with immaculate grace, Jude smoothly suggests heading back to the library to finish up their study session, acting like he didn't just throw her heart into a blender. Shaking off her confusion, Melissa beams with a bright, radiant smile, completely charmed by his gentle aura once again. Hand in hand under a halo of sparkling lights, the two walk side by side like a royal couple. Too bad the romantic atmosphere is about to be utterly destroyed in 3, 2, 1. Creak! Right outside the grand glass doors, a shadowy figure lurks. Lady Clarice, Viscount Cocotte's daughter, grips her frilly umbrella with white knuckles while a dark, villainous aura swirls violently around her. Seeth! Clarice's eyes darken with pure envy as she recalls the warm, tender look Jude gave Melissa, a look he has literally never shown her no matter how hard she tried to get his attention. Drama overload. Throwing her arms up in a full theatrical breakdown, Clarice curses the goddess above, whining about how unfair it is that Jude was chosen as a flower of fate for someone else. In her unhinged imagination, she envisions Melissa living like a reverse harem queen, surrounded by an absolute buffet of gorgeous men holding trays of exotic fruit. Like, girl, calm down, she's just trying to survive. Sob! Clutching her oversized straw hat, Clarice cries dramatic anime tears, convinced she's living out the worst tragic fate in human history. Flinch! Out of nowhere, a cool voice behind her chimes in, agreeing with her outburst, causing poor Clarice to practically jump out of her stylish green dress. Stepping out of the shadows with effortless style is Adil, the dark-haired charm who smoothly agrees that the goddess must be insanely mean to give such a rough time to a pretty lady like her. Smooth. Laying on the smooth flattery thick, Adil casually suggests the goddess was probably just jealous of Clarice's beauty, leaving the flustered noblewoman stuttering in absolute confusion. Bowing like a total gentleman with his hand over his heart, Adil introduces himself as a simple merchant and politely offers to buy her a hot cup of tea to settle her nerves. Chills! Pulling off his fitted black glove with peak charisma, Adil gives her a sly smirk, hinting that he might actually have the power to help her get exactly what she wants. Cut to a high-angle shot of a stunning golden gazebo balcony where the two sit down for a private tea party. Look at this background detail. The architectural budget for this manhwa is insane. Raising his teacup with a smooth grin, Adil drops his true identity, revealing he's actually Adil Oxervigon of the legendary Faded Flowers. Hiding her surprise under her huge hat, Clarice politely introduces herself as Viscount Cocotte's daughter, Clarice, keeping her guard strictly up. The two sit across from each other in the sunlit garden, sipping tea like high society nobility, but you can feel the intense tactical mind games brewing beneath the surface. Smiling softly, Adil encourages her to loosen up and just enjoy a pleasant chat, maintaining a completely laid-back demeanor. Glare! Clarice stares back with cold, analytical eyes, utterly unbothered by his charming routine as she tries to calculate his true motives. Searching through her memories, Clarice realizes she doesn't remember seeing Adil at the royal presentation at all. In her head, she literally visualizes Jude glowing like a saint while Adil gets tossed into the background trash heap. Slam! When Adil casually mentions that no one will think they're secretly dating in public, Clarice slams her hands on the table, fiercely shouting that she's not some shallow girl. Leaning forward with dark scribbles surrounding her, Clarice coldly declares that Jude is the only man for her. Adil just chuckles smoothly and apologizes for pushing a sensitive button. Composing herself, Clarice fixes him with a sharp look and asks if she can probe into his private thoughts regarding the heroine. Without missing a beat, Adil gives a welcoming nod, telling her she can ask whatever her heart desires. Tension. Clarice leans in and asks point blank if he's close with the child of the oracle, causing Adil's carefree smile to instantly flatten into a sharp, serious expression. Stirring his tea with practiced ease, Adil coolly responds that they're bound together by divine destiny, so of course they share a unique bond. Smirk! A sinister dark aura flares around Clarice as she tries to stir up trouble, asking Adil if it doesn't make his blood boil knowing Melissa's attention is divided among so many men. Giving him the ultimate yandere side-eye, Clarice pushes further, asking if he can really accept a fate where his chosen heroine looks at everyone else except him. Unhinged memory! A dark, twisted fantasy flashes across the panel, showing Clarice violently shattering Jude's chains with a dagger, ready to kidnap him in the name of twisted twisted love. Yeah, this girl officially lost her mind.
But instead of falling for her psychological trap, Adil's smirk reappears as he calmly asks if blowing a fuse is actually going to fix anything.
Clarice freezes in place as Adil casually notes that throwing a temper tantrum won't magically force the person you love to return your feelings. Clarice stares at him like he's an alien. That deadpan expression is priceless. She was expecting a toxic co-conspirator, but got hit with a solid reality check instead.
Chuckling off the awkward silence, Adil points out that her tea's gone cold and offers to go brew a fresh pot like the polite host he is. Clack! Resting her gloved hand on the table, Clarice coldly shuts him down, announcing that she doesn't need another cup.
Putting on a fake, sugary sweet smile, Clarice excuses herself under the guise of prior plans, but internally she's seething with black smoke, calling Adil a useless, spineless coward. Thud, thud. Walking down the grand marble staircase with a dark villain aura trailing behind her, Clarice decides that if nobody else will help her, she'll just take matters into her own hands and save Jude herself. Sweat? Back at the gazebo, Adil takes a nervous sip of tea, sweating slightly as he watches her leave. Honestly, even our cool merchant guy is low-key terrified of how unhinged she is. Think! Adil's expression turns deadly serious as he analyzes the conversation, realizing Clarice was looking at Melissa like she wanted to murder her on the spot. He officially marks the Viscount's daughter as a massive threat. Clink! Setting his teacup down with a firm click, Adil resolves to dig deeper into Clarice's background before she makes a move against Melissa. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware of the Yonde plot targeting her life, poor Melissa walks down the cathedral hallway letting out a heavy sigh over her study workload. Stay tuned because things are about to get wild. Imagine grinding through stacks of heavy textbooks every single day just to figure out the crazy secrets of your own universe. Melissa is trudging down the grand cathedral hall while her trusty maid Ollie pushes a cart overflowing with massive study books. When Allie cheekily jokes that Jude must secretly enjoy giving her private tutoring sessions, Melissa goes full chippy panic mode and stammers that it's absolutely nothing. Holding back a heavy sigh, Melissa turns around thinking that there's actually a hilarious secret behind her so-called academic perfection that she definitely can't reveal out loud. Turns out, Jude gave them a massive pile of work, fully expecting them to fail. So when she cleared it all in one go, even silver-haired Helix looked completely dumbfounded. Talk about an accidental flex. Even though the workload is totally insane, Melissa actually enjoys studying theology and other classes since learning about this noble magic world is brand new to her. Surrounded by beautiful stained glass visuals of hydrangeas, she realizes that digging deeper into the legendary Oracle Child and the faded flowers might be her only lead to finding that mysterious kid from her past. Just as she's deep in thought, whoosh! Silver-haired Helix literally drops down upside down from the ceiling like a magical ninja, asking if she wants to do some hands-on research with him. Crash! Helix instantly loses his grip and comes tumbling down head first with a loud scream. You gotta love how this guy tries to pull off a cool anime entry only to end up on the floor like a total goofball. Struggling back to his feet, Helix grumbles a quick apology, leaving Melissa completely stunned with wide eyes and a massive shockwave background. She clutches her maid in disbelief because hearing the proud, arrogant magician actually say, "My bad," feels like a total glitch in the Matrix. Is he secretly plotting something suspicious? Under a halo of sparkling lights and blooming white roses, Melissa looks absolutely ethereal. Honestly, the art budget in this chapter is popping off. Blushing furiously, Chibi Helix clears his throat and awkwardly stammers, asking if she wants to test her magical capabilities or what. Reaching out his gloved hand with sudden intensity, Helix looks her dead in the eyes, eager to see what kind of hidden potential she's packing beneath that innocent face. With a cool smirk, he officially proposes that she undergo a suitability test to unlock her true magical inclination. A suitability test? The idea sends a surge of excitement through Melissa as she grips her collar, pondering what secrets her body might be holding. Standing in the grand marble hallway, Helix gestures smoothly as he breaks down how the evaluation measures every citizen's baseline powers. When Helix asks if that sharp-tongued priest Jude ever taught her this basic stuff, Melissa just shakes her head no, proving once again how completely sheltered she's been kept. With magical sparkles bursting around a golden bowl, Helix explains the 3 core power types: elemental magic power, divine holy power, and raw physical aura. In this kingdom, Every kid takes this evaluation before turning 12 to discover their natural affinity, making Melissa a total late bloomer. Allie chimes in to confirm that even commoners and low-ranking nobles take the test in early childhood, leaving Melissa feeling even more behind the curve. Connecting the dots, Melissa recalls Helix using offensive magic and Rion purifying poisoned food with divine holy power, though physical aura is completely foreign to her. Looking down at her palm, she remembers that one single incident where she managed to channel magical energy by pure accident. A flashback reveals young Melissa holding a bundle of wildflowers. She vows to unlock her inner strength so she can make her own choices and control her destiny. Plus, if she learns how power works, maybe she can help the faded flowers who are constantly getting dragged around by the mysterious Oracle child. Helix locks his gaze on her, silently waiting to see if she has the guts to step up and face the truth about her magical potential. Taking a deep breath, Melissa resolves herself and nods, ready to dive headfirst into the unknown. With a glowing spark in her eyes, she boldly requests to take the test right then and there, no backing down now. Helix flashes a triumphant grin, stoked that she agreed as the title card drops for Chapter 18, Let the Real Trial Begin. Thud. Stacked heavy grimoires hit the wooden table as they head into the library to prepare the official testing setup. Clink! With practiced ease, Helix sets down an exquisite golden bowl filled to the brim with crystal-clear testing liquid. Both of them throw their hands in the air with a hyped-up woohoo! It's hilarious seeing these two dorks match each other's goofy energy. But seconds later, Helix catches himself, deadpanning as he tells her she needs to start acting like a proper, refined lady instead of a hype man. Fuming with red cheeks, Melissa barks back that she was just trying to match his energy. Honestly, their sibling-like banter is easily the best part of this series. In a split second of intense overthinking, Helix visualizes a delicate, crying Melissa and instantly panics, stammering that he didn't mean to offend her. Before he can recover, bam! Melissa leans right into his personal space with an intense glare, scaring the absolute daylights out of him. With his heart hammering and face turning beet red, Helix stumbles back, completely disarmed by her sudden closeness. Softening her stance, Melissa tells him to drop the weird filter and just say whatever's on his mind like he usually does. Helix stares at her with wide, shimmering eyes, totally caught off guard by her blunt yet comforting words. Resting her chin in her hands with the sweetest smile imaginable, she tells him not to pull any punches during the lesson. Then she switches back into a deadpan chibi, leaning in with dot eyes just to make sure he really got the message. Talk about rapid mood swings. Shaking off his embarrassment, Helix waves his wand, effortlessly levitating a feathered quill and a glowing potion bottle into the air. The magical quill glides through the air, drawing luminous pink spell circles right before their eyes. Look at this gorgeous top-down shot of the library. The artist really pulled out all the stops, showing glowing stick figures floating overhead as Helix begins his lecture. While potion bottles float effortlessly around the room, Melissa enthusiastically raises her hand like an eager star student ready to ask a question. She asks a brilliant question. If everyone gets one power type, is it possible for a rare genius to possess dual affinities? Helix uses glowing diagrams to explain that human bodies can only containerize one power system. For instance, he's a pure magic genius, so he can't use holy power or aura at all. Crack! Melissa casually roasts him, noting that's why Jude easily shut him down earlier. Helix's fragile ego shatters into a million pieces on the spot. Allie shares her own experience, revealing that coming from a low Baron family gave her weak magic affinity, but not enough mana to actually cast anything useful. Helix notes that high-tier powers are almost exclusive to high nobility, leading Melissa to wonder if her bloodline as a count's daughter gives her a real shot. Watching her innocent expression, Helix realizes she wasn't lying. She was genuinely locked away from the world for years, leaving her completely ignorant of basic magic lore. But that's all about to change. Ever wonder what happens when an arrogant magician hands you a glowing bowl and expects you to unlock universe-altering magic on your first try? Helix casually points his wand at an ornate water basin, explaining to Melissa that this little bowl is going to evaluate her raw power affinity. Go ahead, dip your hands in, he says as Melissa hesitantly reaches toward the crystal-clear liquid. You can practically hear the suspense rising in the library as she gets ready to discover her true potential. But before she can even touch the water, Helix's face instantly morphs into a hilarious chibi shock, leaving Melissa completely wide-eyed and confused. Turns out, this isn't just any random bowl. With literal gold currency signs flashing in his eyes, Helix reveals that this testing basin is a super rare luxury item owned and managed directly by the Magic Tower. Dun dun dun! The mood instantly turns pitch black as dark despair swirls around poor Melissa, who realizes she's standing next to an artifact worth more than her entire life savings. Down in full chibi meltdown, Melissa immediately starts converting the bowl's insane value into the only metric that matters to her: endless, mouth-watering bowls of hot bean and pork innard stew. Talk about a priority check. Shaken off her economic panic, Helix gets a mischievous glint in his eyes, silently deciding that now is the perfect time to tease his cute student a little bit. Swoosh! With a flick of his wand, radiant pink magical light wraps around Melissa and literally lifts her off her feet. Maid Allie panics in the background as Melissa floats helplessly in midair. Talk about an unintentional K-drama romance moment. Helix catches her in a smooth, dramatic dip right under floating rose petals and sparkling light. Honestly, the art budget for this scene is completely off the charts. Holding her remarkably close, Helix cheekily whispers that she doesn't need to be nervous since he's her husband after all, guiding her hands toward the surface of the basin. Flash! The second her fingertips touch the water, a brilliant burst of multicolored light explodes out of the bowl, illuminating her wide, awestruck eyes. Sparkling star-like particles scatter across the entire room like magical fireworks, leaving both Melissa and Allie completely speechless at the sheer beauty of the display. Crossing his arms like a smug professor, Helix analyzes the glittering light, concluding that since she's the child of the Oracle, this reaction definitely signals divine holy power. But as he stares at the swirling cosmic particles, Helix gets a subtle, serious look, silently wondering if there's something far more mysterious hiding within that bright sparkle. Leaning in with glittering blue eyes, Melissa excitedly asks if having this divine affinity means she'll finally be able to cast high-level holy magic. Smirking with maximum arrogance, Helix teasingly tells her that if she grinds super hard, maybe, just maybe, she'll reach his god-tier level one day. Glue! Excited beyond belief by his praise, Melissa completely loses her cool and hurls herself into Helix for a full-on celebratory hug. Looking down with an adorable radiant smile, Melissa genuinely beams up at him, completely unbothered by personal space boundaries. Poor silver-haired boy never stood a chance. Helix turns his head away with a massive beet-red blush, completely undone by her sudden burst of affection. Pat, trying to act cool and save his fragile pride, Helix gently pats her head, nonchalantly claiming that her success was totally obvious from the start. But as he looks down at her innocent face, a somber shadow falls across his eyes as he realizes she has no idea what lies ahead. And that beneath that sweet smile, she might be carrying powers far beyond anyone's wild imagination. Deep inside the golden basin, the testing liquid swirls with starry, galaxy-like cosmic energy, hinting at an ominous destiny. Later that evening, the scene shifts to the grand balcony stairs, where warm golden sunset light bathes the palace while delicate butterflies flutter through the garden. Walking side by side down the marble stairs, Melissa warmly thanks Helix for the lesson, admitting that he finally helped her see the path she needs to walk. Watching his casual stride, Melissa secretly wonders if he put all this effort into teaching her simply because she's the famous child of the Oracle. Slumping his hands behind his head with a relaxed posture, Helix turns around and asks her if she wants to ask something that's been bugging her. Crack! The bright atmosphere suddenly drops into a dark, gritty flashback showing a mysterious green-haired figure with the haunting text, "They were murdered," throwing a massive curveball into the plot. Shaking off the dark thoughts, Melissa puts on a cute smile and casually asks Helix what he was actually like when he was a little kid. Glare! Helix's playful mood instantly vanishes as he glances back over his shoulder with a cold, guarded stare, demanding to know why she's prying into his past. Melissa nervously clutches her dress, internally panicking about whether she should mention the mysterious boy from her memories, knowing Helix could easily lie to her face. Lounging back in an opulent red chair while casually twirling a tarot card, Helix smirks mockingly as poor Melissa stammers and struggles to find an excuse. Seeing her sweat buckets, Helix breaks into a soft grin and tells her to relax. It wasn't actually that big of a deal. Stepping closer under the amber sunset, Helix shrugs it off, assuming her curiosity has something to do with the Oracle's grand lore. But then, rubbing the back of his neck with an awkward expression, Helix drops a bombshell. He doesn't actually possess a single memory from his childhood. Gasp! Melissa's heart drops as a massive shockwave ripples through her mind. Wait, Helix doesn't remember his past either? What is up with everyone in this story having amnesia? Helix explains that the Magic Tower Master told him he was originally just a commoner with magic powers so absurdly huge it completely dwarfed high nobility. In an eerie flashback, we see tiny silver-haired Helix having his eyes covered by glowing hands, revealing that the Magic Tower forcibly sealed his powers away. They claim that if they hadn't sealed his volatile mana, his magic would have spiraled out of control and completely obliterated the entire capital city. Heartbroken by his tragic past, Melissa softly looks into his eyes and asks if he was really okay after going through something so traumatic. Helix just laughs it off with a casual hand wave, reassuring her that he's totally fine. Otherwise, he wouldn't be standing here flexing his magic today. Looking down at his gloved hand, Helix admits that even right now, half of his original magic power remains locked away under a heavy seal, though he can use the unsealed half without limits. A striking, melancholic visual shows little Helix frozen inside a massive block of blue ice surrounded by magic circles, illustrating how his childhood memories were permanently locked away along with his power. Melissa stares at him with deep sympathy, unable to fathom just how terrifyingly dangerous his full, unsealed magic truly is. Looking up at him under the fading golden sky, her heart aches as she reflects on how painful it must be to live without knowing who you were in the past. Clasping her hands close to her heart, Melissa looks Helix straight in the eyes and earnestly tells him that rather than worrying about the capital, she feels completely safe whenever she's with him. Shock! Helix's eyes widen in absolute astonishment, completely stunned by her unfiltered, genuine confession. Flustered by her own sudden boldness, Melissa blushes furiously and stammers, asking if that sounded way too selfish of her. Breaking into a warm, genuine laugh, Helix smiles softly at her, telling her that it's totally okay to be selfish once in a while. Surrounded by blooming pink roses and warm golden light, the two share a joyful, laughing moment together, leaving us with maximum butterfly feelings as their bond grows deeper than ever. Talk about a dramatic exit. Just when things were getting good between our duo, Helix decides to play the mysterious high-tier magician card, casually announcing that he's taken his leave after wrapping up Melissa's magic affinity evaluation. Swoosh! With a flick of his wand, spiraling streams of glowing water dance around his hands like a liquid ribbon as he gently tells Melissa to head straight back to her room without getting into any trouble. Look at that $1 million smile. Melissa gives him the absolute cutest, most wholesome wave goodbye, completely oblivious to the fact that her sheer charm is probably destroying Helix's emotional composure on the spot. But as Helix turns away, the playful mood instantly vanishes. Look at that sharp, calculating glance. The man's mental gears are spinning at full speed because he knows that bright cosmic burst from the basin wasn't just basic holy magic. Honestly, the art team cooked so hard with this close-up. Shaking off his heavy thoughts, Helix flashes his signature arrogant smirk, tossing out a smooth farewell while the swirling water particles dissolve into thin air. Plop! A single drop hits the courtyard fountain, but as Melissa stands alone in the quiet garden, her gut suddenly twinges. Her bright eyes narrow as an eerie, spine-chilling sensation washes over her, that unmistakable feeling that someone creepy is staring directly at her from the shadows. Gasp! Whirling around with wide, trembling eyes, Melissa catches a sudden movement in the distance that snaps her right out of her peaceful daydream. Standing across the manicured garden under a frilly white parasol is a nobleman's daughter dressed in a bright yellow gown, silently observing Melissa like a hawk locked onto its target. Lowering her parasol just enough to reveal her face, the girl wears a polite, picture-perfect smile. But let's be real, there's something eerie about how still and calculated her posture is right now. Tap, tap, tap. With graceful steps, the aristocrat glides across the courtyard while dramatic title text appears on screen, signaling that a major political plot point is about to drop. Putting on her best high society manners, Melissa greets her with a beaming smile, casually asking if she's out taking a stroll through the palace grounds. The girl bows politely, mentioning she was just returning from running errands, but suddenly her eyes widen as if she'd just made a groundbreaking realization. Covering her mouth in theatrical astonishment, she stammers out a question, asking if Melissa is really the legendary child of the oracle everyone in the kingdom has been hyping up. Sweating buckets? Melissa awkwardly laughs it off, confirming her identity while clarifying her actual name. In response, the brown-haired noble instantly curtsies, introducing herself as Clarice, daughter of Count Cocotte, and dramatically begging for forgiveness. Clarice keeps showering her with formal apologies for being so forward in front of someone with divine status. Seriously, high society manners and manhwas are always dialed up to 11 for no reason. Panicking, Melissa frantically waves her arms to tell her it's really not a big deal, which instantly causes Clarice to clasp her hands together and gush over how extraordinarily kind Lady Melissa is. Internally sweating bullets, Melissa hesitates. She remembers meeting Clarice before, but she's desperately trying to figure out if bringing up their past encounter is a good idea. Flashback. A dark, gritty memory flashes in Melissa's mind, showing Clarice trembling in absolute terror. Realizing how traumatized the poor girl was, Melissa wisely decides to keep her mouth shut and pretend it's their very first meeting. Smart move. Shaking off the awkward tension, Clarice turns back toward Melissa with an elegant pose, ready to carry on the conversation smoothly. Looking over at the flowing palace fountain, Clarice soft-spokenly notes that even though it's artificial, watching the water ripple always helps soothe her mind after a hectic day. Gazing down at their soft reflections in the clear water, Melissa genuinely agrees, admitting that it really is a serene spot to clear one's head. Seizing the opportunity, Clarice drops a super casual suggestion, mentioning a hidden fountain located deep within the forest outskirts, the exact area where the royal hunting tournaments take place. Framed by dramatic, glowing sunflowers, Clarice puts on a pitiful, lonely expression, sighing about how tragic it is that she has no one to accompany her to such a breathtaking location. Melissa tilts her head in complete confusion, shocked to learn that the Paris grounds actually contain a secret forest fountain she's never heard of. Sparkle! Leaning in with maximum enthusiasm, Clarice clasps her hands together and invites Melissa to go on an exclusive private picnic there in 2 days. Wearing the most angelic, glowing smile you'll ever see, Clarice softly confesses that she just wants to get to know Lady Melissa better. Honestly, if this isn't a setup for a classic manhwa trap, I don't know what is. Melissa's eyes light up with pure wonder. Coming from years of isolation, being invited on a fun outing by a noble girl her own age feels like a dream come true. When Clarice nervously asks if the offer is okay, Melissa's chibi form pops out, aggressively shouting an absolute yes before she can even process the idea. Turning to her trusty maid, Allie, Melissa checks if her schedule is clear for the day after tomorrow. Flipping through her notebook, Allie confirms that her calendar is wide open. Beaming with pure joy, Melissa officially accepts the invitation, telling Clarice that she would absolutely love to join her for the picnic outing. Clarice promises to pick her up directly in her luxury carriage, leaving Melissa floating on cloud 9 as they lock in their weekend plans. Creep. But as Clarice turns and walks away under her frilly parasol, check out the dark, grainy shadow crawling at the bottom of the screen. Yep, the artist is practically screaming at us that this girl has a shady ulterior motive. Later that evening, the scene shifts to the bathhouse where the senior green-haired maid talks with Allie, expressing genuine awe over the news that Lady Melissa possesses divine holy power. Soaking in the warm, steamy bathwater with a cozy headband on, Melissa stares blankly at the ceiling, reflecting on how she used to just passively go with the flow of whatever happened to her. For the first time in her life, she realizes that she actually wants to take control of her own destiny and make genuine connections on her own terms. Looking over at the maids folding laundry, Melissa casually mentions that she's heading out on a picnic with a new acquaintance in 2 days. Bam! Out of nowhere, the senior maid gets a mischievous glint in her eye, instantly teasing Melissa by asking if she's going on a secret romantic date with the hot-headed red-haired Lord Rion. Splash! Flustered beyond belief, Melissa violently thrashes in the bathtub, screaming in chibi rage as she denies any romantic rendezvous while the maids giggle hysterically. Catching her breath, Melissa blushes furiously and explains she's hanging out with Count Cocotte's daughter, Clarice. Hearing this, the head maid smiles warmly, expressing how happy she is that Melissa's making noble friends. The word friend hits Melissa like a freight train. A sparkling flashback of Clarice's bright smile fills her mind as she slowly processes the fact that she actually made her very first real friend. Touching her chin with a gentle, teary-eyed smile, Melissa's heart swells with emotion. You can't help but feel soft for her. She's been through so much, and all she wants is a simple friendship. Dun dun dun! The cozy, wholesome vibes get utterly shattered. In the dark dead of night, Maid Allie sneaks through a dimly lit hallway and secretly hands a sealed envelope to a mysterious hooded figure wearing black gloves. Wait, is Allie a double agent? The betrayal is unreal. Fast forward 2 days later, clad in an adorable sun hat and classy blue dress, Melissa excitedly waves goodbye to her staff as she steps into Clarice's waiting carriage. Both maids smile warmly and bow, wishing their young mistress a safe and wonderful afternoon on her picnic trip. But as they watch the carriage pull away, the head maid looks up at the sky, and her smile instantly vanishes as thick, pitch-black storm clouds aggressively cover the sun. Talk about ominous foreshadowing. Clop, clop, clop. Surrounded by heavily armored royal knights, the dark red carriage rolls across the bridge under a heavy, suffocating gray sky. Sitting inside the carriage, Melissa peers out the window with starry eyes, cheerfully telling Clarice how much she's been looking forward to their fun day together. Sitting directly across from her, Clarice gazes out the opposite window into the gloomy, dense forest, her face devoid of any warmth or emotion. Turning back with a sweet, refined smile, Clarice lies through her teeth, claiming she couldn't wait for today either. Meanwhile, poor innocent Melissa just sits there, trusting her completely. Creak. The carriage comes to a dead halt at the edge of a foggy, pitch-black forest. Clarice points deeper into the woods, claiming the fountain is just ahead, while Melissa steps out and looks around in sheer panic, realizing the knights have mysteriously vanished and they are completely alone in the dark trees. What an insane cliffhanger! Silence. A suffocating, eerie stillness hangs over the dark forest path, instantly reminding Melissa of those miserable, isolated days she spent locked away at the royal villa. Talk about a major red flag right out of the gate.
Clinging to her bonnet, Melissa nervously looks over at her companion and asks if they're anywhere near the secret fountain yet. But Clarice just stops dead in her tracks, casually muttering that this dark, isolated spot will do just fine. Snap. Out of nowhere, Clarice twists the handle of her frilly parasol and triggers a hidden magical artifact. Glowing purple rings of light instantly wrap around Melissa's body, trapping her completely while she screams in sheer horror. Zap! The royal guard attempts to draw his sword to protect Lady Melissa, but a violent bolt of lightning shocks him right through his armor, knocking him out cold. Meanwhile, Clarice just stands there under her umbrella like an ice-cold villain. Bound by glowing magical ropes, Melissa gazes up in absolute shock and heartbreak. She really thought she had made her very first real noble friend, only to get backstabbed in the middle of nowhere. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the fiery red-haired Lord Rion bumps into Melissa's maids in the hallway. Spotting only the two of them walking together, he tilts his head and casually asks why Melissa isn't by their side. The senior maid cheerfully explains that Melissa went on a forest picnic with Count Cocotte's daughter. Hearing the word forest, Rion's eyes instantly twitch. He looks out at the pitch-black storm clouds gathering overhead and senses that something is dangerously wrong. Back in the gloomy woods, Melissa struggles against her magical bindings, desperately demanding to know why Clarice is doing this while surrounded by unconscious guards. Honestly, the dark, moody atmosphere in this panel is top tier. Dropping her sweet facade, Clarice glares down at Melissa with dead, soulless eyes. She coldly confesses that she simply cannot forgive her for what she's done, even though poor Melissa hasn't done a single bad thing in her entire life. Clarice snarls at her to stay far away from Priest Jude. A shimmering flashback of the handsome, green-haired priest appears in Melissa's mind as she stammers in complete confusion. Wait, all this dramatic kidnap plot is over a crush? Rant mode activated. Clarice accuses Melissa of being a manipulative flirt who seduces pure-hearted men while hoarding a whole harem of handsome male friends. We even get a cute flashback panel of Melissa hanging out with Rion drinking tea. Clasping her hands in sheer desperation, Clarice screams at the top of her lungs that Priest Jude is the only person in the world who matters to her. Seriously, girl, go get some therapy instead of setting up forest ambushes. Clarice continues her unhinged rant, shouting about how unfair it is that someone favored by divine luck can just waltz in and steal his attention. Sweating bullets, Melissa desperately begs her to just calm down and listen.
Yank! Completely unhinged, Clarice grabs Melissa by her hair ribbon and violently pulls her head back. She demands that Melissa swear an oath never to look at or approach Priest Jude ever again. As pain shoots through her scalp, Melissa remembers her resolve to stop being a passive victim who lets others walk all over her. She's determined to face her destiny head-on, no matter how scary it gets. Looking Clarice dead in the eye with glowing blue determination, Melissa refuses to make that promise. Clarice clicks her tongue in pure disgust. You can tell she was not expecting this sweet girl to stand her ground. Rustle! Suddenly a heavy snap of branches echoes from the thick foliage behind them. Both girls freeze in terror as the terrifying sound of a wild predator cuts through the tense standoff. Turning away with a sadistic smirk, Clarice casually drops a terrifying detail. Wild wolves have recently taken up residence on this exact mountain. Smothered in fake politeness, she bids Melissa a chilling final farewell. Desperate shout! Melissa screams for Clarice to stop and wait, but the noble girl cold-heartedly glides away under her parasol, leaving Melissa bound and helpless in the middle of wolf territory. What a certified snake! Left completely alone on the dirt path next to the knocked-out guard, Melissa slumps to the ground in total despair. The dark forest shadows stretch out around her like a living nightmare. Clop, clop, clop. Meanwhile, Rion gallops at full speed through the dark, stormy countryside on horseback, his sharp instincts telling him that Melissa's life is in serious jeopardy. Spotting the Cocotte family carriage rolling back toward the city completely empty, Rion's heart drops into his stomach. He grips the reins tightly, violently whipping his horse into an all-out sprint toward the forest. Strain! Melissa desperately twists her wrist, trying to slip out of the magic ropes binding her arms, but the glowing purple manicords won't budge an inch. Growl! The bushes part, and a pack of massive, yellow-eyed wild wolves steps onto the path. Their terrifying shadows loom right over poor Melissa, who gasps in frozen terror. Staring into the glowing eyes of the lead wolf, Melissa realizes something even more terrifying. The beast isn't looking at her, but at the motionless guard lying on the dirt next to her. Horror! Realizing the hungry monsters are about to tear the unconscious snake to pieces, Melissa's eyes widen in sheer panic. She can't let an innocent person die because of this trap. Snarl! The massive wolf bares its sharp fangs and lunges directly for the fallen soldier. Melissa screams out in desperation, begging the guard to wake up before it's too late. Helplessly watching the beast snap its jaws, Melissa's inner monologue hits hard. She finally found a purpose in life, and she refuses to let another human being get slaughtered right in front of her eyes. Thunder! Rion bursts through the tree branches on horseback, screaming Melissa's name as he sees the terrifying sight of the wolf pack surrounding her. Talk about arriving in the absolute nick of time. Boom! Pushed beyond her limits, Melissa screams from the bottom of her lungs. A colossal burst of radiant holy magic erupts from her body, cracking the magical restraints like thin glass. A blinding flash of sacred golden light engulfs the entire clearing. The powerful divine aura shatters the purple spell completely, sending the wild wolves tumbling backward in shock. As the heavenly particles dance through the air, the holy magic heals the surrounding area, causing the unconscious royal knights to groan and slowly rub their heavy helmets. Stumbling to his feet, the head knight blinks in confusion, asking what on earth just happened and where Clarice went, completely oblivious to the massive wolf low growling behind him. Clash! Just as the relentless wolf leaps through the air to bite Melissa, Rion swoops in like an absolute hero, blocking the vicious jaws with his heavy scabbard. Honestly, Rion's rescue game is unmatched. Pushing the beast back with brute strength, Rion keeps his cool while the knight panics. Thinking fast, Rion comes up with a cover story on the spot so no one discovers Melissa's hidden divine powers. Rion smoothly lies to the guards, claiming Clarice panicked during the wild dog attack and threw random magic tools everywhere, which scrambled their memories. The guard swallows the lie hook, line, and sinker, volunteering to stay behind while Rion gets Melissa to safety. Wrapping his arm tightly around Melissa's shoulder, Rion warns the guard that more beasts might be hiding before guiding her back toward the path. The knight salutes, promising to hold the line. Once they reach his horse, Rion unclasps his heavy traveling cloak and gently drapes it over Melissa's shivering shoulders, telling her to get ready so they can ride back. As they stand beside the horse, Melissa looks up with big, curious eyes and softly asks Rion why he lied to the guards about Clarice's magical trap. Pulled in close under his cloak, Rion reveals the harsh reality. If he had told the truth about the assassination attempt on a divine figure, Clarice would be publicly executed without trial. He explains that high society politics are brutal. Her entire noble line would be stripped of titles, her parents ruined, and the entire kingdom would demand her head on a block. A graphic illustration of an executioner's axe really drives the point home. Looking down at her with a gentle, heartwarming smile, Rion softly confesses that even though Clarice deserved it, he knew a sweet girl like Melissa would never want someone's death weighing on her conscience. My heart is melting. Chibi comedy! But then Rion hilariously flips the mood, casually adding that he personally wouldn't give a damn if that girl got executed. Sweating as he lifts her onto the horse, Melissa blushes furiously while denying his teasing. Settling onto the saddle, Melissa gazes back at him and whispers a heartfelt thank you. Smiling softly, Rion hops on behind her, and they gallop off into the warm sunset together. Gasps! Returning to the palace, the maids rush out in absolute horror, gasping at Melissa's messy hair and disheveled clothes as they demand to know what happened. Putting on her best innocent smile, Melissa smooths over the situation with a lie, claiming wild dogs attacked him in the woods and she lost her hair ribbon while Rion rescued her. Look at Rion smiling proudly in the background. Rion steps in to take full charge, telling the maids to let Melissa rest while he goes to submit an official report to the royal guards. What a reliable male lead. Dramatic shift. The scene shifts to the dark, gloomy estate of Count Cocotte later that night, where a frantic voice echoes through the silent halls. Inside her luxurious bedroom, Clarice is sweating buckets, violently shaking in utter panic. Holding a teacup with trembling hands, she realizes that if anyone finds out she unleashed wild beasts on the child of the oracle, her head is getting chopped off. Crash! The teacup slips from her fingers and shatters into pieces on the floor. Staring at the mess in absolute horror, Clarice realizes her desperate plot completely backfired, leaving us on the edge of our seats for the ultimate political fallout. Talk about stepping into the lion's den. Right after Clarice thought she pulled off the ultimate crime, heavy footsteps echo through her room as a shadowy figure corners her in the dark. Throwing back his hood, red-haired Lord Rion strolls in like he owns the place, dropping a massive bombshell. Clarice won't be executed or charged because Melissa personally begged to spare her life. Clarice's mind completely breaks down in confusion as she stammers about why her victim would ever protect her after an assassination attempt, while Rion just smirks and suggests Melissa was probably just happy to make a friend. Hearing the word friend hits Clarice like a freight train, forcing her to process the fact that she tried to feed a girl who genuinely cared about her to wild beasts. Talk about an instant reality check. Flashbacks of Melissa's radiant smile flood Clarice's mind, making her realize just how pure-hearted her target actually was. And honestly, the artistic contrast between Melissa's sunshine aura and Clarice's guilt here is top-tier storytelling. Slam! But the soft sentiment vanishes in a heartbeat as Rion violently grabs Clarice's face with his gloved hand, slamming her against the wall with pure, icy rage. Gasp! As Clarice chokes for air, Rion leans in close, his golden eyes glowing with murderous intent as he whispers that he'll never forgive her for what she pulled in the woods. Releasing his grip, Rion lets her collapse onto the floor, coldly commanding her to keep playing the part of Melissa's friend so he can keep a tight leash on her every move. Glaring down at her trembling body, Rion leaves her with one chilling final promise. If she ever makes Melissa cry or attempts another stunt, he will personally execute her himself. Swoosh! Before she can even answer, Rion vanishes into the night breeze, leaving Clarice clutching her neck on the cold floor in utter terror. Whew. Meanwhile, back in the safety of the royal estate, Melissa's headmaid gently tucks her into bed, relieved beyond words that her precious young lady made it back home alive. Bidding her maid goodnight, Melissa stares up at the dark canopy, haunted by the grim-smeared image of Clarice bound in dungeon chains, realizing that telling the whole truth would have meant a public execution. But even though she saved Clarice from the chopping block, memories of being tied up in front of snarling wolves flood her mind, making her blood run cold. Seriously, who could just sleep off a wild animal attack? Staring into the dark with glowing, resolute blue eyes, Melissa swears to herself that she won't play the helpless victim anymore and needs to confront Clarice face to face. Clink! The next morning, as Melissa sips her morning tea on the sunny balcony, her jaw almost hits the floor when her maids announce that Clarice has formally requested an immediate meeting. Sweat! Sweating bullets, Melissa panics internally. Clarice is asking to see her literally the day after trying to eliminate her? Panicked chibi visions of Clarice storming in with a giant dagger to finish the job flash through Melissa's brain, making her look absolutely adorable despite the high-stakes drama. Shakily taking a deep breath, Melissa accepts the meeting request, but turns to her loyal maids Allie and Sonia with a very specific secret request to prepare for battle. Click! Rummaging through her vanity drawer, Melissa pulls out a stunning piece of jewelry she's been saving. Holding up a breathtaking stained glass floral hair clip that sparkles in the light, Melissa declares that she needs to put on an armor of confidence and look as intimidating as possible. Her maids tilt their heads in sheer confusion at the word strong, but Melissa looks back at them with absolute, fierce determination. Catching onto their lady's hype, the maids crack competitive smirks, pledging to give her the ultimate high-fashion battle makeover. Rustle! The transformation begins as Sonia and Ali lace Melissa into a magnificent dark navy gown fit for a powerhouse villainess taking control of the room. Tie! Sonia carefully ties a sleek black velvet choker around her neck, adding the final dramatic touch to her fierce new look. Glint! A fiery spark blazes in Melissa's eyes. Honestly, seeing our sweet heroine step into her boss lady era gives me absolute chills. Adjusting her square-cut neckline and high-waisted belt, Melissa looks like a completely different person compared to the naive girl from yesterday. Standing tall with an icy expression, she readies her heart to face her backstabbing rival without flinching. Shimmer! Pinning the brilliant silver hair accessory into her updo, Melissa whispers a silent prayer, asking for the strength to stand her ground. Tap, tap. Her heels click against the marble floor as she descends the grand staircase, radiating pure elegance and authority. Look at this entry panel. Dripping in dark elegance and surrounded by glowing blue flowers, Melissa looks straight up ready to run an entire empire. Wave! But just as she reaches the bottom step, a familiar hand with a distinct pink flower mark waves at her from across the reception room. It's none other than the mysterious merchant guy in his flamboyant red outfit, greeting her with a casual smirk like they're old pals. Baffled, Melissa asks what on earth he's doing here, only for him to smoothly explain that he's supervising the session, pointing toward Clarice, sitting silently on the sofa. Stiff! Wearing a plain white dress, Clarice stands up stiff as a board, quietly greeting Melissa with downcast eyes. Gasp! Melissa freezes on the spot, her eyes wide with tension as she stares down the girl who left her for dead in the woods. Step, step. The heavy silence in the grand hall is suffocating as Clarice slowly walks toward her former friend. Darkness creeps into the room as shadowy butterflies flutter around them, building up the tension for an explosive confrontation. Thud! But instead of throwing hands, Clarice suddenly drops straight onto her knees, slamming her forehead into the floor in a desperate, full-blown apology. Talk about an unexpected plot twist. Flustered! Melissa's intimidating villainous persona completely shatters as she waves her hands in sheer panic, begging Clarice to get off the floor. Relaxing back in his armchair with his legs crossed, the merchant guy casually chuckles, telling them not to mind him since he's just there as an official witness. He winks and adds that Melissa's probably nervous being alone with a backstabber, while Melissa sweats internally, hoping Clarice's secret assassination plot doesn't spill out and get her executed. Holding a hand over his heart, the handsome merchant swears on his honor as a traitor that everything said in this room will remain strictly off the record. Staring into his eyes, Melissa realizes she has no choice but to take control of the situation and get to the bottom of this mess. Composing her posture, Melissa takes a firm stance, ordering Clarice to stand up, sit across from her, and look her straight in the eye. Sit! Smoothing her dark dress, Melissa takes her seat with absolute poise, uttering two simple words, "Let's talk." Getting straight to the point, Melissa asks why Clarice attacked her, prompting Clarice to sigh softly and confess that she's been hopelessly in love with Priest Jude for years. Gasp! Shocked, Melissa stammers, asking if they were secret lovers, which sends Clarice into a total frenzy as she screams that her feelings are completely one-sided. Blushing like an anime tsundere with bright flowers blooming in the background, Clarice swoons over her crush while Melissa and the merchant stare at her in absolute disbelief. You really can't make this stuff up. Dreamy! Clarice starts launching into a passionate, dramatic monologue, describing Priest Jude's lush green hair like spring leaves and his dreamy eyes like the clear blue sky. As a heavenly halo shines around Priest Jude's saintly, smiling face, Clarice explains she only set up the forest picnic to raise donation money to meet him, while the merchant guy hilariously chimes in that normal people just donate without elaborate schemes. Starting off with an absolute boss move. Imagine grinding your way to the top of the business world just to flex on the church and bag your dream guy. Clarice clenches her fist as she reveals how she built a massive beauty and fashion empire strictly to fund massive church donations for priest Jude. Hold on, even the merchant guy Adil is stunned. Looking at all those high-end dresses and cosmetics displayed in the boutique, he realizes Clarice is actually the secret mastermind behind the biggest luxury brands in the whole kingdom. Talk about an ultimate flex. Adil casually points out that no wonder the church has been rolling in cash lately, while poor Melissa sits in the background looking completely lost with question marks floating around her head. Clarice blushes as she admits she thought throwing endless bags of gold at the church would naturally hint that she wanted Jude to leave the priesthood for her. Meanwhile, Melissa gives her the blankest stare imaginable. Like, girl, maybe try actually talking to him. Dramatic tension. The mood drops as Clarice brings up the faded flower, aka the child of the oracle. She knew in her heart that Jude was bound by destiny to Melissa, yet she still let herself dream of a fairy tale ending with him. Check out this full-blown fantasy wedding visual. Clarice literally pictured herself in a glittering white bridal gown standing at the altar next to a smiling priest Jude. Talk about being utterly delusional. Hearing this, Melissa gets pulled into her own thoughts, looking back at her lonely past in the detached palace. Seeing these hydrangeas and sunflowers fade in the background reminds us that while she was locked away, everyone else was living their own dramatic lives. Glowing blue magic! The room grows cold as Melissa remembers the sacred contract connecting her to the priesthood. She realizes that without even meaning to, her mere existence as the child of the oracle completely crushed Clarice's hopes and made her feel like a puppet. Clarice clutches a glowing snow globe, her voice trembling as she acknowledges that feeling hurt still gave her zero right to orchestrate an assassination attempt against Melissa. At least she's self-aware now. Dark flashback. Shadows fall over the panel as Clarice remembers Lord Rion pinning her against the wall with icy rage. She admits that it took having her own neck held on the chopping block to finally wake her up. Lowering her head in front of Melissa and Adil, Clarice delivers a heart-wrenching apology, genuinely repented for putting her former friend through absolute horror. Bending down in full surrender, Clarice offers to accept whatever brutal punishment Melissa deems fit, so long as she isn't sent to the gallows. Sitting on her golden throne-like armchair, Melissa echoes the word punishment in her head, while the atmosphere thickens with suspense. What kind of vengeance is our heroine about to dish out? Comedic swipe. The dramatic tension shatters into a million pieces as Melissa stands up, puts her hands on her hips, and pouts like an angry toddler, yelling about how mad she is. Clarice blinks in total shock, squeaking out a confused, "Huh?" because she fully expected a severe beating or exile, not a super cute chibi temper tantrum. Atmospheric shift. The panel turns pitch black as blue light speckles the dark. Deep down, Melissa admits that she was terrified during the wolf attack, but more than anything, her heart was broken by the betrayal. Zoom in on those blue eyes. With a cold, resolute gaze, Melissa stares straight into Clarice's soul and officially hands down her sentence. The dramatic suspense here is peak webtoon storytelling. Cut to the palace courtyard. Out by the grand fountain, Adil leans back in his vibrant red attire and chuckles at Melissa, commenting on how ridiculously soft her punishment actually turned out to be. Sitting on the marble fountain edge, Melissa gazes at the crystal clear water and softly admits that even though she almost lost her life, she just can't bring herself to hate the girl she once considered a friend. Gentle ripples spread across the blue water as text floats in the air. Melissa truly doesn't want someone who shared happy memories with her to meet a horrific end. Chilling trauma reveal, sudden dark transition, flashbacks of a young girl locked behind heavy iron bars haunt the panel as a cruel maid yells at her to reflect on her actions for a week. Clang! Small hands desperately grip the cold iron bars, screaming for mercy as footsteps echo away down the dark stone corridor. Drip, drip. In the pitch black cell, a meager plate of water is slid onto the cold stone floor as the little child's stomach grumbles in agony. Gasp! Back in the present, the traumatic memory hits Melissa so hard her vision swirls. Clutching her stomach and gasping for air, she stumbles blindly across the stone pavement. Swoop! Adil dashes in just in time, grabbing Melissa by the shoulders before she hits the ground. Look at that genuine panic in his eyes. He's completely thrown off by her sudden collapse. Shaking and covering her mouth, Melissa stammers an apology, insisting she just needs to get back to her room. Adil watches her with a serious, calculating gaze. He knows there's something much deeper going on.
Golden sunset embrace. Against a breathtaking orange sky, Adil suddenly pulls Melissa tight against his chest, catching her completely off guard.
Romantic peek? Gently cupping her soft cheek, Adil looks down into her wide blue eyes, softly whispering that being strong is fine, but she needs to let him shoulder her vulnerabilities. Can we get a round of applause for this smooth male lead move? The camera pulls back to reveal the stunning wide shot of the Grand Palace Terrace, framed by sparkling fountains and glowing sunset light. The artistic mood here is absolute perfection. Flushed with emotion, Melissa lowers her head, holding delicate yellow blossoms as her heart flutters from his words. Smiling tenderly, Adil offers to walk her back to her chamber, making sure she gets rest after an emotionally exhausting day. Scene shift. We transition to Adil's private study later that evening. His head butler bows respectfully at the door, delivering an urgent report on the recent investigations. Sitting at his massive wooden desk surrounded by maps and antique typewriters, Adil reviews secret intel regarding the Gross family's territory, the exact birthplace where the child of the Oracle was discovered. Crack! Adil breaks the red wax seal on a confidential letter. His aide explains that the Gross family was a secretive, conservative noble clan holed up in their lands. Slam! As Adil scans the document, his eyes widen in pure shock. Throwing the papers onto the desk, he gasps as a massive plot twist unravels right before his eyes. Leaning his head on his hand with an icy, dangerous expression, Adil realizes this conspiracy goes way deeper than a simple noble feud, demanding his aide lay out every single detail. Cut to the next morning in the palace classroom. A chalkboard map is drawn out as a proper lesson begins. The tone shifts completely into a cozy slice-of-life vibe. Clarice pops open a gorgeous velvet-lined pink jewelry box, presenting a dazzling collection of treasures to Melissa. Sparkle! Golden chains, emerald pendants, and sapphire brooches glitter in the light. Narration drops the big reveal. Melissa's ultimate punishment for Clarice was forcing her to become her personal etiquette and geography tutor. While Priest Jude handles basic academics, Clarice is filling in the gaps of high society etiquette that Melissa missed while locked away in the detached palace. Honestly, turning your former assassin into your personal tutor is top-tier big brain energy. Cute tsundere moment. Seeing Melissa stare in awe at the jewels, Clarice casually offers to just gift them all to her. Melissa's chibi face explodes in flustered panic. Glimmer! Waving off her protests, Clarice gently places a stunning jewel necklace around Melissa's neck, smiling warmly as they both look into the mirror and agree it looks breathtaking on her. The maids enter the room, watching in complete disbelief as Clarice and Melissa happily laugh together like lifelong besties over accessories and dresses. Wholesome overload! Sparkling flowers bloom around Melissa's radiant smile as she thinks about how gentle and patient Clarice is as a teacher. Curtsying with flawless grace, Clarice wraps up the lesson for the week, bidding a polite goodbye as she takes her leave. Lounging back on her velvet sofa, Melissa sips her hot tea as Sonia pours another cup, asking if her lady was a bit too forgiving towards Lady Cocotte. Punch the air! Maid Ali clutches her fists in angry chibi style, fuming about how she still can't forgive Clarice for abandoning Melissa in the dangerous forest. Sonia nods along with a sharp, stern expression, agreeing that leaving their young lady behind was completely unforgivable. Dark secrets. Smiling softly over her teacup, Melissa reassures them that Clarice is truly sorry. But in her head, she knows the real truth. She had to cover up the wolf assassination plot with a fake falling out lie so Clarice wouldn't lose her head. Chilling final panel. Flashback visuals of tied ropes and snarling wolves loom behind Melissa's delicate tea time. Our smart heroine carries the burden of this dangerous secret alone, proving she's no longer a helpless pawn in this noble game. Just when you think palace life couldn't get any wilder, our girl Melissa drops a total bombshell on her maids. She's actually turned her former assassin into her personal high society tutor. Talk about taking keep your enemies close to a whole new level. Melissa calmly sips her tea like she didn't just forgive someone who tried to feed her to the wolves, casually reminding her maids that if anyone steps out of line again, she won't be nearly as merciful next time. With the sweetest, most innocent smile on her face, she reassures them that as long as any drama happens out in the open where everyone can see, she'll be totally safe. I mean, look at that angel face. You'd never guess she's low-key playing 4D chess.
She genuinely thanks her maid Allie for getting furious on her behalf, showing just how deeply she appreciates having real loyalty around her after spending years completely isolated in the detached palace. With a dark, haunting visual, the mood instantly crashes. As a terrifying flashback takes over, we see a young, helpless Melissa locked inside a freezing dungeon while a cruel maid screams at her to rot in solitary confinement for a week. Yikes, the art style shift here really hits you right in the gut. Gently setting her porcelain teacup down, Melissa excuses herself, claiming she suddenly feels exhausted and needs to head back to her chamber to rest. Her maids bow deeply in respect as she steps away, but you can feel the heavy, uncomfortable tension lingering in the air. The second she's alone in her room, Melissa collapses onto her daybed, clutching her chest as painful gasps escape her lips. The emotional fallout from her traumatic past is finally catching up to her. Floating against a dark background with delicate purple flowers, her inner monologue reveals that ever since Clarice begged for forgiveness, all those dark thoughts of punishment have been triggering her worst childhood nightmares. We see a heart-wrenching flashback of her younger self desperately sipping water from a dirty plate behind cold iron bars. No matter how hard she tries to bury her past trauma, it's all coming flooding back like a tidal wave. Visual chains wrap tightly around her figure as Melissa admits the painful truth. She might physically be free now, but mentally, she's still a helpless prisoner trapped in that wretched mansion. Cut to the next morning, we transition into the bright palace library where Priest Jude is conducting their daily academic lessons, trying to bring some normalcy back to her routine. Noticing Melissa staring blankly into space with troubled eyes, Jude pauses mid-sentence, looking over at her with deep concern before attempting to break her out of her trance. Before he can even finish asking if she's all right, heavy footsteps echo through the hallway, making Jude turn toward the grand entrance as he grants permission to enter. Talk about a dramatic entrance. Prince Bernard strides into the classroom looking like a walking military fashion model with his golden hair, crimson cape, and brooding blue eyes. Staring straight at our heroine, Bernard coldly addresses her as the child of the Oracle, making Melissa freeze in her seat. Man, this guy really knows how to command a room without saying a single extra word. Towering over her desk, the prince abruptly demands a private chat, leaving Melissa completely baffled as she squeaks out a confused response. Trying her best to politely dodge this sudden confrontation, Melissa nervously stammered that her lesson was still in session, glancing back and forth between the prince and her teacher. The air freezes as Bernard gives an icy glare, while Jude glares right back with absolute disapproval. The silent tension between these two top-tier male leads is so thick you could cut it with a sword. Breaking the suffocating silence with a polite smile, Jude calmly closes his book and announces that they can wrap up today's lesson early. Honestly, Jude is such a class act for knowing when to gracefully step back. With a brisk command, Bernard tells her to follow him, while Melissa gathers her books and politely thanks Jude for his patience as she stumbles after the prince. Cut to the palace terrace. Sunlight sparkles off the grand bridge and courtyard fountains as Bernard leads her out into the open air. While following behind him, Melissa's brain is running in circles trying to figure out why he dragged her all the way to the garden just to walk in complete silence, until Bernard suddenly turns around and curtly orders her to sit down. Hesitantly taking a seat on the marble bench, Melissa clutches her book tightly to her chest, mentally pleading to get through this conversation as quickly as possible. Then, out of nowhere, soft words break the heavy silence as Bernard speaks up, taking full responsibility for putting her life in danger inside the royal palace. Wait, hold the phone? Prince Bernard, the cold, arrogant royal heir himself, literally bows his head in a deep, genuine apology right in front of her? Did anyone see that coming? Melissa's jaw practically hits the floor as she stares in absolute disbelief, her mind completely short-circuiting at the sight. Panicking internally as her glowing blue eyes widen, she frantically begs His Highness to raise his head immediately, completely unaccustomed to seeing royalty show such humility. Refusing to look up right away, Bernard clenches his gloved fist tightly, reiterating that as the ruler of this palace, ultimate responsibility falls squarely on his shoulders. Staring at him in awe, Melissa's tense expression softens as she realizes he truly cares about her safety and well-being, despite his stoic exterior. With a gentle rustle, Bernard reaches out his white-gloved hand and tenderly cups her porcelain cheek, sending electric shivers straight through the panel. Looking straight into her eyes, he softly mentions that while everyone assured him she wasn't physically harmed, he just couldn't help but worry.
He leans in closer, commenting on how pale she looks and checking if she's running a fever. Naturally, Melissa goes full chibi flustered mode, squeaking out that she's just a little bit warm. Check out this adorable chibi panel. Bernard glares down with deadpan concern, while poor Melissa looks like she's about to spontaneously combust from embarrassment. Composing herself, Melissa softly thanks him, expressing how much it means to her that he was genuinely worried about her safety. Visual flowers bloom around her gorgeous, radiant smile, leaving Bernard completely mesmerized as he gazes at her delicate beauty. Taking advantage of the sweet moment, Bernard casually drops a smooth follow-up invite, deciding on the spot that they should have dinner together tonight. When Melissa stammers in shock, dark shadow aura surrounds Bernard's chibi face as he ominously asks if she happens to have a problem or other plans. Talk about an aggressive invitation you literally cannot refuse. Knowing better than to argue with a terrifyingly persistent prince, Melissa quickly agrees, while internally freaking out over whether she'll even be able to swallow her food under his intense gaze. With a charming smirk framed by glowing pink roses, Bernard informs her he'll send a royal escort before turning on his heel to leave. Bernard gives her one last hilarious "you better not miss it" glare, leaving Melissa frantically promising herself to give a 100% flawless performance so she doesn't offend royal etiquette. Cut to later that evening. Golden lights glow warmly against the grand royal palace as night settles over the kingdom. The heavy double doors swing open as the head maid announces Melissa's arrival, stepping gracefully into the prince's private dining hall. Look at our girl, dressed in an exquisite empire waist golden gown with delicate embroidery and sparkling jewelry. Melissa curtsies like absolute royalty, thanking him for the invitation. Bernard silently scans her from head to toe before murmuring that the dress suits her remarkably well, sending Melissa's inner chibi into another tailspin. Giving her a rare, impossibly handsome smile, Bernard genuinely compliments her beauty, proving he really knows how to sweep a girl off her feet when he wants to. Flushed with pink cheeks, Melissa stammers out her thanks as she takes her seat across the massive candlelight-lit banquet table. Looking down at the elaborate setup, Melissa's eyes widen in utter surprise as she takes in the spectacular sight before her. Glistening under the ambient candlelight is a massive spread of savory roasted chicken, rich stew, artisanal cheese platters, fresh bread, and sweet strawberries. She realizes instantly that Bernard ordered every single one of her favorite comfort foods. Observing her adorable reaction, Bernard casually takes a sip of his soup and tells her to eat up before it gets cold. What a tsundere prince! He acts all distant and cold, but goes out of his way to curate her dream meal. Will these two finally break the ice over dinner? Stay tuned for the next episode. Flushed with a timid blush, Melissa softly agrees, trying her absolute best to keep her composure as she sits across from the prince. Clink! The delicate gold fork presses into a freshly prepared slice of caprese salad, looking almost too pretty to eat. Talk about top-tier culinary presentation fit for royalty. Lifting a portion to her lips, Melissa takes a modest bite while Bernard silently observes her every move across the lavish banquet table. Her eyes sparkle with pure delight as a soft gasp escapes her. It turns out the prince hit a total home run by serving every single one of her favorite comfort foods. Catching her genuine reaction, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk glimmers across Bernard's face as he takes a quiet sip of his soup. Seriously, this guy is the absolute definition of a low-key tsundere. Candles flicker warmly against the grand dining hall as Melissa sweetly expresses how much she enjoyed the meal, admitting she ate far more than usual because everything was so mouth-watering. Turning his gaze toward her, Bernard casually mentions that word had reached him about her having a poor appetite over the last few days. Instantly going full embarrassed chibi mode, Melissa hides behind her delicate teacup, blushing furiously while realizing her daily eating habits are apparently public record in this palace. Swirling his tea, Bernard's tone grows serious as he asks whether something beyond her recent dangerous encounter is troubling her deeply inside. Swirling shadows instantly flood the panel. Heavy atmospheric pressure weighs down as a haunting flash of dark memory threatens to pull Melissa back into the abyss. A somber flashback shows her younger self huddled over a plate, struggling to survive, while in the present, Melissa quickly tries to deflect by bringing up her progress on the upcoming Rain Festival project. Clutching her silk gown beneath the table, her hands tremble slightly as she musters up the courage to shift the topic toward the guarded prince. Staring right into his piercing blue eyes, Melissa politely asks what he was like during his own childhood, trying to bridge that massive gap between them.
Bernard pauses mid-sip, shooting her a cool, guarded look as he inquires why she's suddenly curious about something so personal. Crackle. Burning flames edge the memory panel as a dark flashback reveals a young Bernard chained to endless pile of heavy books under the cold weight of the royal crown. Man, living as the crown prince clearly wasn't all sunshine and rainbows either. Setting his porcelain teacup down with a sharp clink, Bernard dismisses the thought as utterly ridiculous, masking his inner turmoil behind a stoic front. Flipping the script without warning, Bernard coldly demands to know what kind of child she was, pressing her on her real parents, her true home. Crash! The heavy question hits Melissa like a freight train. Her mind completely short-circuits as she collapses forward onto the table, sending her maid and Bernard panicking as they leap to their feet. Trembling violently with wide, terror-stricken eyes, Melissa curls into herself, desperately sobbing out apologies while choking back a full-blown panic attack. Seeing her intense distress, Bernard immediately backs off, ordering the maid to escort her safely to her room while watching her leave with a guilty, troubled, heavy heart. Thud, thud, heavy leather boots echo down the marble corridor as the scene shifts to the next morning. Bernard strides forward with an intense, unyielding scowl that means business. Inside an opulent private chamber, a handsome, tan-skinned man adorned in gold jewelry casually lounges on a velvet armchair while reading a book. Looking up with a smooth, playful grin, Adil nonchalantly greets the prince like they're old drinking buddies instead of high-stakes political players. Without skipping a beat, Bernard raises a hand and sternly commands all the attending servants and guards to clear the room immediately. The heavy double doors slam shut, leaving the two powerful men standing eye to eye in tense, suffocating silence. You could literally slice the tension in this room with a dagger. Getting straight to the point, Bernard bluntly accuses Adil of uncovering secret information regarding the true origin of the child of the Oracle. Dropping the hammer, Bernard exposes his true identity, Adil Aksarvig, the infamous master of the Dark Guild, who controls espionage, black market deals, and high-profile assassinations. Leaning in with an intimidating glare, Bernard warns Adil that it's in his best interest to spill the beans while the royal family is still willing to look the other way. Letting out a dramatic sigh, Adil casually smirks, admitting the prince really doesn't miss a beat before waving his hand across the table. Swoosh! Glowing blue mana crackles through the air as ancient magic unfolds a hidden wooden scroll right out of thin air. With a soft, sparkling aura, a heavily sealed secret document floats up from the magic array and settles right in front of him. Honestly, the visual effects for this dark magic info broker vibe are immaculate. Sliding the confidential dossier across the table, Adil presents the gathered intelligence straight to the prince. As Bernard unfolds the letter and scans the contents, his eyes widen in complete shock as horrific flashback images of young Melissa being abused flash across his mind. Bang! Rage boils inside Bernard's chest as the brutal truth hits him. Melissa wasn't just neglected by Count Gross, she was treated worse than garbage in her own home. Deal calmly explains that Melissa's true origin traces directly back to the abusive household of Count Gross, a prominent figure in the conservative faction. A political map visual illustrates the deep divide, the conservatives who oppose the church versus the progressives led by the royal family who leverage holy power. Adil points out the massive cover-up. Count Gross used illegal magic to disguise Melissa's hair and eye colors, taking advantage of how secretive the oracle details were kept from the public. Reading further, Bernard reflects back on how his own father, the king, simply locked Melissa in the palace annex as a political pawn, without ever bothering to investigate her past trauma. A heavy shadow hangs over Bernard's face as he realizes both sides played a role in trapping this poor girl in a living nightmare. Resting his chin on his hands, Adil lets out a cynical chuckle, mocking how typical and corrupt the kingdom's high society really is. Cut to late that night. Shadows envelop Melissa's luxurious bedroom as she stares up at the chandelier, completely unable to sleep as dark thoughts consume her. Knock, knock. A sudden, gentle tap on the balcony window shatters the night silence, making Melissa sit up with a racing heart. Pulling back his dark hood with a warm, comforting smile, Rion appears at the window like a dashing thief in the night. Melissa's face instantly lights up as she gasps his name. Stepping inside the moonlight-lit room, Rion softly apologizes for dropping in so late, expressing relief when she mentions she couldn't sleep either. A sweet, glowing aura blooms as Melissa clutches her nightgown, feeling her heavy heart instantly lighten up just by seeing him. Grinning softly, Rian gently points out that she finally smiled, causing Melissa to tilt her head in cute confusion.
Looking at her with genuine care, Rian admits he noticed she's been looking down and troubled over the past few days.
Thump! Rian carefully mentions that he heard rumors regarding her childhood family home, causing Melissa's eyes to widen in sudden shock.
Stepping closer under the soft moonlight, Rian gazes earnestly into her eyes, softly telling her that seeing her genuine smile brings warmth to his heart. As the moonlight bathes the room in a magical glow, Melissa stares up at him, her heart skipping a beat as Rian offers her the comfort and understanding she desperately needed. Will Rian be the one to finally free her from her past trauma? Stay tuned. Just when you think a romantic moonlight confession is about to wrap up with sweet butterflies, Rian grabs his cloak and asks Melissa what he can do to make her smile, sending her heart into overdrive.
Her cheeks flush bright pink as she stares back with wide, shimmering eyes, completely unprepared for the sheer intensity of his devotion.
But without missing a beat, Rian's gentle expression vanishes as his eyes glow with a chilling yandere aura, asking if he should just murder everyone who ever caused her pain. Talk about 0 to 100 real quick. Melissa's jaw literally drops in utter horror as Rian casually ponders whether he should rip off their limbs or snap their legs instead. Man, this boy went from sweet knight to terrifying psycho in under 2 seconds. As Rian calmly brainstorms locking her abusers in a cage to starve to death, Melissa snaps out of her shock and screams at him to stop. Honestly, someone give this guy a lesson on normal social boundaries. Crash! Severe atmospheric tension shatters the air as a dark memory of young Melissa being dragged away flashes in Rian's head, triggering a massive, agonizing headache. Clutching his head in visible pain, Rian snaps back to reality, realizing he crossed the line as he desperately apologizes while Melissa trembles, covering her ears in fear. Trying to smooth over the awkward terror, Melissa forces a painful, tight smile, whispering that she's totally fine and that her past is behind her, though her eyes tell a completely different story. Recognizing he blew it, Rian pulls his dark hood over his face, softly bidding her goodnight before turning back toward the balcony ledge. Slide? The glass doors click shut, and as soon as Rian vanishes into the night, Melissa breaks down and collapses onto the floor, curling into a ball of pure emotional exhaustion. Thud! Cut to the high palace rooftops. Rian stands alone in the freezing night wind, groaning in agony as intense throbbing pains rip through his skull. Leaning heavily against the stone balustrade, Rian grimaces as the torment worsens, realizing these unexplainable headaches are getting more brutal by the day. As he grips his head beneath his dark hood, a wave of painful memories begins to resurface, taking us straight into his mysterious backstory. A cold flashback unfolds as Rian remembers his earliest childhood memory, lying half dead on a freezing stone slab inside a dark dungeon. Talk about a bleak start in life. Suddenly, a sharp, uniformed man steps into the gloom, offering the helpless boy a roof, food, and clothes if he agrees to serve under him. Reaching down with a gloved hand, the mysterious figure extends a lifeline to the starving child lying helpless on the altar. Taking the hand, Rian accepted the deal, later discovering that his savior was none other than Prince Bernard, who gifted him a sword and the name Rian. Swoosh! From that day on, young Rian trained relentlessly, slicing through solid wooden logs with terrifying speed and precision. Once he mastered his deadly aura blade, the prince deployed him on covert missions across the world, exposing him to luxury banquets and endless wealth. Yet despite seeing breathtaking landscapes and stunning maidens across various nations, Rian's heart remained completely hollow and unfeeling. Until 6 months ago. Standing in the royal study, Prince Bernard summoned Rian for a critical mission, asking if he was familiar with the prophecies surrounding the divine oracle. A mystical visual reveals the grand legend of the oracle, a white-haired maiden surrounded by sacred blooms whose power could alter the fate of kingdoms. Bernard explained that 5 divine seeds were sown across the lands, prompting every nation to search for those bearing the sacred floral mark. Unsheathing his gloved hand, Rian reveals the glowing pink flower emblem stamped on his skin, dryly asking if his job is literally to go flirt with the "I'm just a language model and can't help with that." Bernard lets out a subtle smirk, calling it ironic that a man completely devoid of human emotion must now risk everything to win over a girl's heart. Staring down his loyal shadow, Bernard firmly stresses that this mission is their ultimate shot at breaking the Empire's ancient curse. Shrugging it off with a casual smile, Rian warned his master not to get high expectations, internally doubting whether he could ever truly charm anyone.
Flash. But everything changed the exact moment Rion stepped into the grand sanctuary and laid eyes on Melissa standing under the holy stained glass.
Shimmering in divine light, Melissa turned toward him with radiant blue eyes, looking like an actual angel descended from the heavens.
Thump thump, Rion's stoic expression completely froze as a strange, overwhelming warmth washed over his chest. Clutching his heart in utter confusion, the ice-cold assassin felt his dead pulse jump for the very first time in his life. Flashbacks show how Rion fell deeper under her spell with every encounter, growing furiously protective whenever she was in danger. Man, talk about the ultimate "I don't care about anyone except her" trope. Leaning against her chair with a rare, gentle smile, Rion realized he was utterly incapable of walking away from her. He swore he would never be the reason for her tears, yet seeing her forced, painful smile earlier broke his heart into a million pieces. Bang! Back in the present, Rion slams his fist against the balcony railing in sheer frustration, furious at himself for terrifying the girl he wanted to protect. Fast forward to the next morning, inside Melissa's lavish salon, Helix holds a heavy book and sighs as he finds Melissa face down on the sofa in full depression mode. Thud! Dropping a massive tome on divine magic onto the table, Helix complains about hunting down research for her while she mopes like a deflated balloon. Taking a seat on the plush velvet couch, Helix glances over at her dramatic breakdown with a mixture of annoyance and genuine concern. Crunch! Helix casually snatches a baked treat off her plate, prompting a pouty Melissa to whine that he's stealing her cookie. Hey, whatever gets her talking, right? Munching on the stolen pastry, Helix asks if she's gonna head back home, calling her out on being visibly down in the dumps today. Relaxing on the sofa beside her, Helix reassuringly offers to keep her company while she works through whatever emotional slump she's stuck in. Holding up another cookie with a cheerful grin, Helix shows off the pink floral mark on his wrist, reminding her that good snacks make everything better. Staring back at him in stunned silence, Melissa feels a sudden wave of warmth wash over her heart at his unexpected kindness. Clutching a throw pillow to her chest, Melissa timidly admits that she lied to someone who was genuinely worried about her well-being. Looking down remorsefully, she hugs the pillow tighter, feeling the lingering guilt of pushing Rion away during her late-night panic. Helix casually tilts his head, smartly reading between the lines and noting that she only lied because she desperately wanted to be okay. Sighing softly, Melissa reflects on her traumatic past and palace confinement, admitting she hates putting her suffering on display just to be pitied. Pointing a finger with top-tier motivational energy, Helix tells her to stop complaining and get strong enough to turn her fake smile into real strength. Now that's what I call a reality check. Crickets. An awkward silence settles over the room as Helix instantly breaks sweat, worrying if his tough love speech went way too far. Gasp! Just as Helix panics, Melissa looks up at him with newfound resolve, catching him completely off guard as the mood flips instantly. Talk about turning a mood around. Just when you think Melissa is going to sink deeper into her depression, she looks at Helix with glowing eyes and calls him an absolute genius. Naturally, Helix's ego inflates to cosmic proportions as he pretends he always naturally knew it, all while stuffing his face with stolen cookies beside her on the couch. But before he can get too full of himself, Melissa suddenly gasps as her eyes lock onto his face. With a bright, cheeky grin, she points out that the grand genius actually has cookie crumbs smeared all over his cheek. Puffed. So much for looking smooth. A dump? Helix's eyes go wide in total shock as his brain completely short-circuits from her radiant smile. Flustered out of his mind, he aggressively wipes his face and stammers out an awkward question, asking if she's finally feeling better, to which Melissa happily agrees. Hugging her pillow tightly, Melissa genuinely thanks him and vows to become stronger so she won't be a burden anymore. But as Helix stands up, his playful vibe completely disappears. Leaning over her with a surprisingly intense stare, Helix softly reassures her that she's already plenty strong just the way she is. Okay, where did this sudden male lead energy come from? Before Melissa can even process the unexpected swoon moment, Helix casually turns around and heads for the door like nothing happened. Throwing a nonchalant wave over his shoulder, he thanks her for the snack and walks out into the grand hallway. Tap, tap, tap. His boots echo through the marble corridors, but don't let his casual strut fool you. This guy is on a serious mission. Arriving at a massive indoor fountain, Helix pulls out his wand and prepares to cast a high-tier tracking spell.
Whoosh! Water cascades up into glowing azure streams, spreading across the entire palace estate like a magical surveillance network. Scanning through the liquid mirrors, Helix zeroes in on his target, spotting Rion sulking all by himself on a high rooftop balcony. Swoosh! Teleporting directly through the swirling water, Helix lands on the balcony, glaring at the rogue assassin with zero hesitation. Cutting straight to the chase, Helix angrily demands to know what horrible things Rion said to put Melissa in such a dark mood. Gulp! Rion stares off into the distance, internally cringing as he remembers how his extreme yandere proposal to murder her family utterly terrified the girl he loves. But when Rion starts wallowing in self-pity, Helix snaps, reminding him that he's not his therapist and couldn't care less about his angst. Grab! Losing his patience entirely, Helix grabs Rion by the collar, ready to shake some sense into him. Helix screams at him to stop moping when he isn't even the victim, but Rion just gently taps Helix's hands and smirks, calling him a surprisingly good guy. Talk about defusing a bomb with kindness. Realizing Helix is right, Rion's gentle expression vanishes into a dark, cold glare as he decides it's time to handle Melissa's abusers properly. Step. Just as the tension reaches a boiling point, a mysterious voice echoes from behind, interrupting their dramatic standoff. Shiver! The scene shifts to a shadowed room where the heavy truth is finally laid out on the table. Gathering inside the grand strategy room, Jude reads through a confidential report detailing how Melissa's birth family horribly abused her for years, while Helix glares at Prince Bernard for spying on her. Crunch! Jude crumples the paper in sheer rage, his gentle facade cracking as his eyes glow with terrifying murder intent. Crossing his arms, Rion reminds everyone that Melissa wanted to spare their lives, so instead of outright killing them, they should systematically strip away every single freedom her abusers possess. From the freedom to eat and sleep to the freedom to even speak, they plan to lock her abusers in absolute misery and hand their fate to Melissa. Honestly, this revenge plot is darker than a villain arc. Without a single second of hesitation, Prince Bernard, Helix, and Jude all cast their votes in favor of ruining her family's entire existence. Keek. Watching the chaos unfold, Adil lets out a dark snicker, finding it hilarious how this motley crew of power-hungry men actually united for one girl. Adil mockingly lists out everyone's selfish hidden motives, prompting Chibi Helix to blow his top and scream in protest. Resting his chin on his hands, Adil notes that out of everyone in the room, Prince Bernard's ultimate endgame remains the biggest mystery of all. But regardless of their individual schemes, all 5 male leads lock eyes and officially agree to execute their massive coordinated retaliation. Fast forward 1 whole month later, Melissa is hard at work inside her sunny conservatory library, putting down her quill with a weary sigh. Stretch! Leaning back in her chair among the lush red roses, she stretches out her arms, finally finishing her daily magic studies. Pitter-patter! Looking out the massive arched glass doors, she notices gray rain heavy against the window panes. Walking over to the grand staircase, Melissa realizes the dreary rainy season is fast approaching, adding a gloomy chill to the palace atmosphere. But her mind isn't on the weather. She's fixated on the sacred prophecy and the ancient bond connecting her to the divine oracle. With only 4 months left before the final deadline, Melissa knows she desperately needs to figure out which of the 5 male leads holds the true divine key. Sitting alone on a velvet bench, she sighs softly, wishing she could hang out with the guys to investigate them further. Flashbacks reveal that Jude has been setting self-study assignments, Bernard and Adil vanished, Rion made things super awkward with his murder rant, and Helix disappeared right after calling her strong. Gasp! Suddenly, Chibi Melissa clutches her head in absolute panic, convincing herself that all 5 guys secretly despise her because she asked about their traumatic childhoods. Freaking out over being an insensitive nightmare, her internal panic spiral is suddenly cut short by a gentle knock at the glass doors. Creak! The door opens to reveal Jude standing under a glowing floral aura, looking like an ethereal saint descending from heaven. Greeting her with a warm, elegant smile, Jude asks if she's been doing well, causing Melissa to jump up in total relief. Timidly stepping forward, Melissa asks if his busy schedule finally cleared up, hoping he wasn't avoiding her after all. With a serene, mysterious closed-eye smile, Jude softly reassures her that they've finally settled things. Melissa tilts her head in cute confusion, wondering what on earth he means by settled. Clatter, crash! Before Jude can explain, chaotic shouting and heavy footsteps erupt from the hallway outside. Thud! The doors burst open as a hilarious tangled pile of suitors tumbles directly onto the hardwood floor. As Adil waves cheerfully from the top of the dog pile, Rian casually crushing a screaming Helix underneath him, Melissa stands there utterly speechlessly. Yep, the boys are definitely back! Imagine thinking you've escaped your traumatic past, only for your harem of overpowered suitors to kidnap your abusive birth family and serve them up to you on a silver platter. Prince Bernard stands tall in his regal uniform, maintaining an icy composure as Adil calls everyone to join in on the upcoming confrontation. Gasps! Melissa's jaw drops in absolute disbelief. She can barely process the fact that even Prince Bernard, the literal heir to the crown, got dragged into this chaotic revenge plot. Stepping closer, Prince Bernard inspects her flushed face with a stoic look, blunt as ever, noticing how pale and shaken she looks right now. Honestly, Bernard's total lack of a filter is hilarious. The girl is mid-existential crisis, and he's out here giving health checkups. Trying to lighten the intense atmosphere, Melissa lets out a soft chuckle and asks if he was actually worried about her. Naturally, Bernard turns his head away in silent tsundere embarrassment, completely unable to admit his true feelings. Looking past him, Melissa stares in total confusion at the sight of all 5 male leads gathered together. Jude steps forward with his trademark serene smile, explaining that they all had a little chat and teamed up to prepare a special present for her. Melissa's eyes sparkle with genuine wonder as she takes in the sight of all 5 guys standing side by side. It's almost cute how oblivious she is to the utter darkness brewing behind their handsome smiles. Jude warmly hopes she'll like what they prepared, while Helix smirks, confident she'll be thrilled. Rian then leans in, slyly mentioning that since the present was too bulky to bring inside the palace, he'll be sneaking her out tonight to see it. Dun dun dun! Cut to the shadowy dungeon cells below. Kneeling like a devoted knight, Rian gently takes her hand and asks if she'll accept their surprise. Below the surface, her abusers are literally tied up and gagged in terror, yet Melissa happily agrees, completely unaware of the dark twist waiting for her. Shiver! The atmosphere plunges into total darkness. Deep inside a cold, damp dungeon, 2 figures, heavily battered and bound in thick iron chains, lie helpless on the stone floor. Talk about top-tier manhwa dramatics with this eerie shading. Fast forward to the dead of night. Rian carries Melissa on horseback through the misty moonlight, finally arriving at a massive, ominous estate nestled in the dark hills. As they dismount, Jude and Helix step out from the shadows to greet them. Helix crosses his arms with his signature grumpy charm, huffing that he was getting tired of waiting around in the cold. Ever the gentleman, Jude steps up with a warm smile and gently slides the heavy cloak off her shoulders to keep her comfortable. Wham! Before she can even settle in, Jude drops a sudden bomb, telling her that from this point onward, she has to keep her eyes tightly shut. Melissa's eyes widen in total shock, like, wait, what kind of sketchy surprise party is this? Helix scoffs playfully, pointing out that spoiling the big reveal early would ruin all the fun. Seeing her hesitation, Rian places a reassuring hand on her shoulder and takes her hand, softly promising to guide her every step of the way so she won't stumble. Jude and Helix give her reassuring nods, comforting her by saying they'll be surrounding her every step of the way to protect her. Blushing slightly at their overwhelming care, Melissa lets out a soft sigh and nods, placing her complete trust in them. Oh girl, if only you knew what you were walking into. Tap, tap, tap. Their footsteps echo quietly against the cold stone steps as Rian carefully leads her down into the subterranean darkness. Guided only by touch, Melissa closes her eyes, feeling the sudden drop in temperature and listening to the chilly, damp air echo off the walls. As they descend deeper, a faint, metallic, unpleasant scent drifts through the air, sending a sudden shiver down her spine. An uneasy pit forms in her stomach. She wonders what on earth they could possibly be hiding down here. Creak! Reaching the bottom of the stairs, Adel's voice breaks the heavy silence, announcing that she can finally open her eyes and see her present. Adil and Prince Bernard stand guard beside a pair of massive reinforced iron doors. Smiling warmly, Rian encourages her to take the lead and open the doors herself. Rian gently extends his hand toward the heavy steel handles, letting her take the final step forward. Gulp. Taking a deep breath, Melissa braces her heart, knowing deep down that whatever lies behind these heavy iron bars isn't gonna be pleasant. With a slow creak, she pushes the doors open. Clang! The doors swing wide, revealing a dark, gloomy torture chamber. 2 bound figures kneel in chains before an iron rack, causing Melissa to gasp in pure shock as she tries to make out their faces in the dim light.
Ba-dum! Blood runs cold as the light hits their faces. It's the Count and Countess, her abusive, cruel birth parents who tormented her for years. Her mind completely short-circuits as terror washes over. Rion's cheerful, innocent voice echoes in the quiet dungeon, asking her what she thinks of their surprise. The artistic contrast between his sweet tone and this gory scene is absolute perfection. With a beaming smile, Rion presents her gift like it's a box of chocolates. Meanwhile, the bound Count glares up in horror, realizing that this refined, stunning young lady is the exact useless failure who ran away years ago. Trembling violently, Melissa stammers out why they would ever do such a thing. Rion casually tilts his head, reminding her how she hated his earlier idea of outright murdering him. Putting on a sad puppy dog face, Rion apologizes for worrying her, admitting he only wanted to make her happy. But his expression instantly darkens as he turns toward the abusive parents. Whoosh! Killer intent flares from Rion's glowing golden eyes. He cold-heartedly states that he can never forgive the monsters who tortured her for walking around freely, causing the Count to squirm in muffled horror. Turning back to Melissa, Rion gently places the power in her hands, telling her that their ultimate fate belongs entirely to her. Melissa stares in dumbfounded silence. Wait, she gets to decide? That's right, every single one of them, Rion confirms. The camera pans across the dungeon, revealing not just her parents, but every corrupt maid, guard, and servant who ever raised a hand against her, all gagged and bound. Helix steps up, raising his wand with a cold glare, offering to completely disintegrate them into ash in a split second. Adil chimes in with a wicked smirk, promising to design an endless cycle of slow, painful agony if she prefers. Prince Bernard coldly offers to draft up legal paperwork to sell them into lifetime forced labor, while Jude smoothly promises to heal their wounds back to perfection if she wants to spare them. Seriously, these guys built an entire dark fantasy revenge buffet for her. All 5 male leads look at her with complete, unfiltered loyalty, standing ready to execute whatever terrifying judgment she demands. Shiver? Beneath their gentle, beautiful smiles, Melissa senses the suffocating, dangerous rage burning within every single one of them. They aren't doing this for revenge. They're furious on her behalf. Realizing that their dark actions stem entirely from their desire to protect and avenge her, a heavy lump forms in her throat. She slowly turns around to face her abusers directly. Looking at her once dreaded parents kneeling pathetically before her, covered in bruises and dirt, Melissa marvels at how the unstoppable monsters of her childhood have been reduced to helpless worms. Clenching her fists tightly against her dress, Melissa acknowledges that she never asked for a bloody massacre or a dungeon revenge scheme. Memories flood her mind. All the times these men noticed her subtle pain, comforted her during her panic attacks, and stood up for her when she felt completely alone. She realizes that her own habit of hiding her suffering and lying to keep them safe is what pushed them to take such extreme measures. Knowing she brought this on herself, she resolves not to run away. Stealing her resolve, Melissa turns back to face the dark reality in front of her. She isn't doing this out of fear of the male leads or hatred for her family. Standing tall in her blue dress, Melissa looks down at the Count and Countess with a clear, unwavering gaze, ready to take full ownership of her destiny. Turning to Rion, Melissa calmly requests that he loosen their gag restraints so her birth parents can speak. She needs to hear their voices one last time. Swish! Helix flickers his wand, casually dispelling the magical gag restraints in an instant. As the Count and Countess violently cough and gasp for air, Melissa politely thanks Helix for his quick work. Stepping forward with cold composure, Melissa greets them quietly. Instead of begging for mercy, the Count's face contorts in ugly rage as he screams, accusing her of staging this entire kidnapping. The Countess joins in, screeching madly about how ungrateful Melissa is after everything they did to raise her, demanding to be freed immediately. Helix's temper flares instantly, but Rion puts out a hand, stopping him from interfering. The abusive parents thrash wildly against their chains, spitting vile insults and demanding to be unchained as if they still held absolute power over her. But as Melissa stares at their pathetic squirming, a strange realization washes over her. In her childhood memories, these people were terrifying, unbeatable giants who controlled her entire world. But now, looking at them chained at her feet, she feels zero fear, only total clarity. She chillingly reflects that their very lives and whatever misery awaits them now rest completely in the palm of her hand. Talk about an absolute boss moment.
What happens when you face the monsters who ruin your past, only for them to scream that they should have finished the job when you were born? Talk about zero self-awareness. The Count and Countess are thrashing around in heavy chains, spitting venom like they still hold all the cards, while steps echo through the dungeon. Still delusional as ever, the Count glares up and demands to know who these powerful figures standing before him are. Helix doesn't even hesitate, giving him the ultimate side-eye and calling him an absolute idiot. Honestly, seeing this arrogant abuser get verbally shut down is ridiculously satisfying. Helix drops a cold reminder, asking if they've already forgotten who put him in this nightmare. Standing side by side, Melissa, Helix, and Ryan tower over the chained couple like a decision wall of retribution, completely shutting down any illusion of escape. Dun dun dun! With a shadowy smirk that sends pure chills down your spine, Rian leans in and reveals that every single person who ever harmed Melissa was dragged down here by their team. The sheer horror hits the abusive parents instantly, leaving them trembling in utter panic. Boo-hoo! The moment they realize they're completely helpless, the abusive parents instantly flip the switch, groveling on the floor and begging Lady Melissa for forgiveness. They even hit her with the classic "we're family" guilt trip, because of course they'd pull that trick when their lives are on the line. Chills. Melissa just stares down at them with icy composure, calling out their fake tears without blinking. She reflects on how she's no longer that terrified, obedient child who would take their abuse in silence. Her growth throughout the story is honestly breathtaking. A quick flashback hits as Helix's advice echoes in her mind, reminding her that if she truly wants to heal, she has to turn her bluffs into reality with her own hands. Talk about top-tier emotional support from the best boys. Swoosh! Magic sparkles surround Melissa as her inner strength flares up. She steals her resolve, swearing that she'll never fall for their manipulative lies again or regress back into that helpless girl. That inner glow in her eyes? Absolute peak character development. Unsurprisingly, the moment their fake begging fails, the Count drops the mask and explodes into ugly rage. He starts screaming insults, calling her an ungrateful wretch and claiming she owes them for letting her live. Seriously, this guy wins the award for worst father in webtoon history. Instead of flinching, Melissa quietly listens to his unhinged tirade, completely unfazed. She knows these vile words are his true feelings, and seeing his mask slip only solidifies her final decision. The quiet, dark atmosphere in this panel is so heavy you could cut it with a knife. Gently taking her hand, Rian steps up with a soft, comforting smile, assuring her that whatever punishment she desires, he'll personally make it happen. Can we just appreciate how unconditionally loyal Rian is? Get yourself a guy who will literally help erase your trauma. Blushing slightly, Melissa lets out a genuine smile and thanks him, stating her ultimate wish: she simply wants to cut ties and never have anything to do with these toxic people ever again. Sometimes, the ultimate revenge isn't blood, it's total erasure. Looking down at the groveling abusers, Melissa stands tall beside Rian, ready to deliver her final sentence. The sheer visual contrast between her regal presence and their pathetic squirming? It's artistic perfection. Panels of all the male leads flash across the screen as Melissa articulates her true feelings. She doesn't want her abusers to die in agony, but she refuses to let them find happiness or delude themselves into thinking forgiveness is possible. It's such a nuanced, powerful take on moving forward. Flash! Rian activates his magical power, causing brilliant, blinding light to engulf the dungeon chamber. The abusive parents scream in absolute terror, begging for their lives as the spell wraps around them, completely washing away the darkness. Shimmer! As the blinding aura fades, the heavy chains remain, but the Count and Countess blink in utter confusion. The aggressive glare in their eyes is completely gone, replaced by empty, puzzled expressions as they wonder where they even are. Looking up at Melissa and Rian, the parents ask who they are with zero recollection of their past or their crimes. Melissa reveals her true sentence, erasing their memories entirely so they spend the rest of their lives in their darkest state as total strangers. Brain-wiping your abusers so they don't even get the luxury of knowing who defeated them? Absolute galaxy brain move. Turning her back on the pathetic duo, Melissa leaves them behind in the subterranean cell with a single cold word: goodbye, strangers. And just like that, she closes the chapter on her traumatizing past forever, stepping forward into a bright new future.